Chapter 803. It's someone from that place. Even they came here to join in the fun? Something that can attract someone from that place is definitely not an ordinary item. Looks like the secret realm of the immortal prying platform hides an unknown secret. A shocking bolt of lightning pierced through the sky and easily shattered a stone giant on the spot. The three figures on the overlooked platform finally attracted the attention of others. After a short moment of surprise, Heaven Dynasty's Xiao Meng took the initiative to make Chu Hen his primary target. He grasped the Saint Cutter axe and swung out a resplendent crescent-shaped axe shadow that carried a biting cold killing power towards Chu Hen. I'm sorry to tell you that there's going to be another corpse here. Boom! Chu Hen's gaze turned cold. With a thought, the blue sky sword that was revolving around him shot out and turned into a powerful sword aura that shattered the axe shadow. The additional corpse is you. Oomph! Arrogant and conceited. The Li clan's Li shaman sneered in disdain. Then his body rapidly enlarged and became like the fifth stone giant. He was covered in long brown fur, like a huge werewolf. As he spoke, the Li shaman stretched out his arms, and a pair of huge palms slapped towards Chu Hen from both sides. Buzz buzz, waves of air stacked, and the airflow in the middle became unusually chaotic. A layer of surging true origin energy covered the Li shaman's palms. This attack had a terrifying aura that seemed like it was going to crush Chu Hen. Let's see how you're going to block me without that sword. Hiss! In an instant, the Li shaman's huge palms directly collided with Chu Hen's position. The space trembled and the sky darkened. However, in the next instant, the Li shaman suddenly let out an angry scream. Everyone was shocked. Along with his scream, a black beam of light pierced through the Li shaman's left palm. Blood splattered, and a bloody hole that was 3 to 4 meters wide suddenly appeared. Then, Chu Hen rushed out with the dripping god spear in his hand, displaying his shocking sharpness. A barbarian is a barbarian after all. Simple-minded, Chu Hen sneered. Bastard! Li Wu was furious, and his eyes were about to spit fire. True Yuan surged outside his body. He opened his left hand and activated his Fong clan bloodline. The bloody hole healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, there was a slight flow of air behind Chu Hen. Needless to say, it was Shadow Killer. However, Chu Hen didn't even turn his head back. He left behind an afterimage where he was standing, and his body flew hundreds of meters away. The draining god spear thrust downwards and attacked Xiao Meng, who was charging towards him. Compared to the invisible Shadow Killer, Xiao Meng's target was much easier. Roar! The draining god spear emitted a dense black light, and the roar of a dragon could be heard from within it. Immediately after, an enormous ancient lizard dragon with a pair of wings on its back charged out. It set off a black wave of light that was like a tide as it bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced toward Xiao Meng. Xiao Meng's expression slightly changed. He didn't expect that Chu Hen would actually take the initiative to attack him. In a moment of panic, Xiao Meng placed the holy axe horizontally in front of him. Soon after, the holy axe shone brightly, and a golden light shield immediately appeared around Xiao Meng's body. It was dazzling and dazzling like the sun. Golden shield's light. Boom! The ancient lizard dragon extended its claw and heavily smashed onto the barrier around Xiao Meng's body. The shocking scene was like an ancient ferocious creature capturing the 9 heavenly stars. A majestic wave of air swept out in all directions. The ancient lizard dragon was unstoppable as it forcefully brought Xiao Meng down from the sky and fiercely smashed into the ground below. The earth-shaking heavenly star explosion caused the ground to rapidly split apart. Endless rubble and sand simultaneously collapsed, like a volcanic storm soaring into the sky. What? Everyone present turned pale with fright. As expected of the draining god dragon's pine spear, this power is truly terrifying. Too terrifying. No wonder the Heaven Dynasty wants to take back this sacred tool. However, everyone from the Heaven Dynasty looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. Others might not know, but they were absolutely clear that the previous draining god spear didn't reach this level of power. Especially the holy slicing axe that Xiao Meng had. It was also a treasure on the sacred tool ranking. Although it wasn't ranked as high as the draining god spear, it wouldn't be crushed by the draining god spear. The draining god spear had leveled up. The eyes of everyone from the Heaven Dynasty revealed cold intent. It seemed like they had to take back this item that once belonged to them. Boom! Then, the huge crater of rubble below once again erupted with a volcanic eruption. Under the flying rubble, Xiao Meng's expression was gloomy. Spiraling waves of true essence surged up violently. That attack just now didn't cause too much damage to him, but it made him look much more miserable. Very good. His cold voice was filled with dense, killing intent. The air was filled with a dense, ruthless aura. Over at Mount Kunliu, Lung Lingyan immediately led everyone to provide support. Protect Chu Hen. Yes. However, at this moment, a dozen ghostly figures flashed over and directly blocked the path of Lung Lingyan's group. What's the meaning of this? Lung Lingyan's delicate brows furrowed. Her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise. The person in front of her was not the Heaven Dynasty's group, but Sky Bamboo Peak's Lin Yuman. Lin Yuman's expression was somewhat cold. She looked at Lung Lingyan with a trace of sharpness. I want to ask you something. Whatever it is, we'll talk about it later. Lung Lingyan was slightly anxious. Right now, Chu Hen was fighting 1 against 3, and these 3's strength surpassed Nangong Bai, Lu Fu, and the others. No matter how strong Chu Hen was, he couldn't fight against 3 opponents whose cultivation was 2 levels higher than his. However, Lin Yuman didn't let it go. She ignored Lung Lingyan and asked, "Back then, when I was selected for the Sky Bamboo Peaks assessment, did you deliberately give your spot to me? You're overthinking it. Your cultivation is indeed higher than mine," Lung Lingyan replied. "Is that so? Have you had enough? Make your move." Lin Yuman raised her jade-like hand. Circles of true yuan flowed on her fingertips. "At this time, I believe that you won't hold back." Lung Lingyan was instantly enraged. "You're still not done. Defeat me. Then you can go and save him." Buzz, Lin Yuman didn't say anything else. She directly attacked with a mighty palm aura. Lung Lingyan's expression turned slightly cold. She immediately faced it head-on. As soon as the two made their move, the disciples of Sky Bamboo Peak and Mount Kunliu also drew their swords, releasing a violent and vicious aura. "Damn, so what if you're from Sky Bamboo Peak? Chop your mothers. I've long since hated you guys. Do it. Mount Kunliu is just a motley crew. So what if we Sky Bamboo Peak look down on you? I'll chop your grandson." Completely unexpected, the people from Mount Kunliu and Heavenly Bamboo Peak actually started fighting for no apparent reason. At the same time, the battle between the other people and the Rattan armored soldiers and terracotta soldiers also ended. It's finally over. A bunch of useless trash died. Who are you calling trash? I'm not talking about you. Why are you so anxious? A few of my companions died. I'm not happy that you call them trash. What else can you do? If you're sad, you can die with them. Your ancestral tombs have exploded. I'll kill you, bastard. Do you think I'm afraid of you? All sorts of people started a fight without saying a word. For a moment, the people in various places suddenly became extremely displeased with the people around them. Their restless hearts and violent aura were like invisible air that quickly spread to everyone's hearts. Very soon, everyone's eyes turned red. They started to attack the people around them without any reason. Boom! Bang! The chaotic battle that had just ended not too long ago had once again erupted in full force. The Liao clan, Tian Tong dynasty, Yiyan nation, and other forces all joined the battle one after another. What's going on? Chu Hen, who was fighting with the Strength Shaman, Xiao Meng, and Shadow Killer, had a confused expression on his face. The others seemed to have gone crazy. At the same time, Chu Hen also noticed that the attacks of the Strength Shaman and Xiao Meng had become much more violent. Shadow Killer, who was hiding nearby, also released a more intense aura. Suddenly, Chu Hen's consciousness flashed, and his mind suddenly trembled for a moment. Immediately after, An extremely restless emotion quickly brewed in his body. This emotion came from an unknown place, but it made Chu Hen's hands and feet itch. He had an urge to kill in all directions, such intense hatred and ruthlessness. This ruthlessness affected everyone's mind. The evil aura within Chu Hen's heart grew stronger and stronger. At that moment, he only wanted to release this evil aura and have another great battle. However, the remaining trace of reason allowed Chu Hen to forcibly suppress this restlessness in his heart. Intuition told Chu Hen that he could not be affected by this resentment and ruthlessness. Otherwise, it was very likely that some unexpected changes would occur. The battle between the people from all sides became increasingly chaotic and intense. True essence wantonly flew everywhere. All kinds of powerful martial arts intersected and attacked. The palm force was like a tide, and the sword shadows were like rays of light. It was enough to topple the mountains and overturn the seas. The more the battle went on, the more chaotic it became. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot. However, the three figures on the observation deck outside the city were still standing there like boulders. This technique is really terrifying. I can't suppress it anymore. The middle-aged man who killed the stone giant in one blow just now muttered. The other middle-aged man calmly looked at the people in front of him who were killing in a chaotic manner. Me too. Ripples appeared in his calm eyes, and traces of restlessness and hostility gradually rose. On the other hand, the young woman sitting in the middle was very calm. She sat quietly on the ground with her eyes closed. Her fingers gently moved as if she was feeling, comprehending, and comprehending. Chapter 804. The chaotic battle between the people from the various forces was so intense that the sky was dark and the earth was dark. A formless resentment quickly occupied the hearts of the crowd. It was as if a hand was pushing the crowd to fight and kill each other. Boom! A powerful shock wave exploded in the void. Chu Hen was sent flying backward by the impact. Hee, your attack is too weak. The strength sorcerer of the Fong clan roared wildly like a giant demon. His majestic, monstrous resentment shook the heavens and the earth. Swoosh! As soon as Chu Hen steadied himself, a rapid, wind-breaking sound attacked him. A pale palm reached out from the faintly distorted space. In the palm, a sharp crystal spear pierced towards Chu Hen's head like an aurora. The speed was so fast that it was like a spark. Sensing the dangerous aura behind him, Chu Hen tilted his head. The crystal spear brushed past his ear. If he had reacted half a beat slower, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Is this all you've got? Then I'm really disappointed. A mocking and ice-cold voice came towards him. Xiao Mang's aura was like thunder. He instantly appeared in front of Chu Hen. He raised a holy axe in his hand high, and a dazzling light was released. Slash! The magnificent holy axe left a trail of light in the void. It was as stunning as a rainbow bridge, and its radiance was thousands of meters long. Chu Hen immediately used the dripping god spear to block in front of him. He used the middle of the spear to resist. Boom! The dazzling light patterns were like a shower of fireworks. Chu Hen's body shook violently. His arms went numb, and he was sent flying again. After a series of moves, Chu Hen fell into a state of only defending and not attacking. The three people in front of him were especially excited. They released the restless resentment in their hearts, and their attacks were especially violent. On the other hand, Chu Hen was continuously suppressing the restlessness within his heart. He didn't allow himself to be disturbed by the resentment. Therefore, under the influence of a series of factors, Chu Hen couldn't perform at his best. Let's go all out and have a great battle, Chu Hen shouted in his heart. But he kept having the feeling that this was like a trap, like a whirlpool, and once he fell into this glove, he would be swept into the whirlpool. What was wrong? A myriad of thoughts ran through Chu Hen's mind as he scanned the chaotic battlefield. It was as if Lung Lingyan, Dan Jun, and the others had forgotten that they were currently in a dangerous situation. All of them were engaged in a fierce battle. Could he have been hit by the rune technique? Chu Hen recalled the strange rune patterns on the bodies of the terracotta soldiers and wrought tin armored soldiers. If someone had set up a huge secret technique here that could affect everyone's emotions, it would indeed cause such a situation. However, Chu Hen was soon puzzled. Why wasn't there any rhythm of the runic energy here? Moreover, the 4 giant stone statues that appeared later did not have any rune patterns on their bodies. There were no signs of runic power flashing, but the current scene was so abnormal. Just where was the problem? From fighting the stone statue army together to killing each other, Chu Hen suddenly realized that he seemed to have missed something. It's not a good thing to be absent-minded at this time. Xiao Meng's attack arrived once again. He raised the holy slicing axe with both hands. Buzz! A powerful wave of energy gushed out, and the exquisite and nimble holy axe suddenly transformed into a 100-meter-wide, sky-splitting axe. Chu Hen's expression changed, and he hurriedly released his majestic true origin energy into the draining god spear. Bang! The piercingly cold spear radiance transformed into a black pillar of light that collided head-on with the earth-splitting, sky-splitting axe. Instantly, the sky shook, and layers of mighty aftershocks spread out like ripples on the surface of water. Sweeping in all directions, the violent energy was like a tidal wave. Chu Hen relied on the might of the draining god spear to block such a powerful attack, but the shocking aftershocks still forced him to retreat. However, in the next second, the aura of the Fong clan's strength shaman surged. Roar! The huge werewolf's body shook like a mountain. Then, he looked down at Chu Hen with a pair of huge palms, and a dark shadow immediately shrouded the sky above Chu Hen's head. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he looked up. This pair of huge hands were like the hands of a devil from hell. Buzz, buzz! An abnormally powerful wave of energy gathered in the strength shaman's huge hands, and the spiritual power in the world quickly gathered at the center of his palms, instantly forming 2 balls of energy light waves. Without giving Chu Hen any chance to retreat, the pair of huge hands immediately erupted with 2 powerful and terrifying shock waves. Let's end this. Chu Hen's pupils shrank to the size of a needle, and his handsome face was almost transparent under the illumination. Boom! Like a divine radiance piercing through the sky. The violent impact was like a meteor crashing down. Chu Hen, who had suffered such an attack, was like a bird that had been struck, and he fell straight down. The violent energy tore at every inch of his skin, and Chu Hen could not move or struggle. Xiao Meng and the strength shaman attacked one after another. Yingsha's cold and emotionless voice followed closely behind. Finally, I'll send you to a place of burial. Hell's Yellow Springs Swamp. The cold voice came from the area below Chu Hen. In an instant, an area of 100 feet below him suddenly turned into a quagmire. The dark quagmire stirred back and forth, and a strong wind howled. Within the quagmire, a huge face that looked like a devil suddenly appeared. It had empty eye sockets and a rough outline, and it was especially hideous and terrifying. Just as Chu Hen was less than 100 meters away from the ground, long and narrow streams of mud flew out of the mouth of the huge face in the quagmire. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The long and narrow streams of mud were like vines, wrapping around Chu Hen's limbs and directly pulling him into the mouth of the Yellow Springs Swamp. Bang! The dark black mud splashed everywhere, and the last sound that Chu Hen heard was the cold laughter of Yingsha, Xiao Meng, and the strength shaman. Chu Hen. The appearance of this scene finally attracted the attention of the people from Mount Kunliu. However, it was too late. The swamp rapidly shrank and solidified, emitting a thick aura of death. Enter my Yellow Spring Swamp, and there will be no corpse left. Yingsha laughed proudly. Bang! Powerless, tired, and his consciousness kept blurring. At this moment, Chu Hen only felt that his body had been torn apart, and he could no longer feel the existence of his limbs. It was as if he was falling into a bottomless abyss. A cold and dark feeling filled Chu Hen's surroundings. What followed closely was the endless aura of death. However, at this moment, A light suddenly flashed in Chu Hen's mind. These two lights were like fireflies in the night, weak and eye-catching. Understand now. So that's how it is. In an instant, Chu Hen came to a sudden realization, and he muttered softly, "This is..." At the same time, the young woman on the observation deck outside the city suddenly opened her eyes, and the two middle-aged men beside her looked at her expectantly. "I understand now. This is illusion. Illusion." In different places, in different situations, the same two words were uttered by two different people. Chu Hen immediately had a feeling of being placed in a hopeless situation. Immediately after, his eyes suddenly opened, and within his deep pupils, a demonic purple light surged out. Within his pupils, 4 black round dots quickly rotated, and a strange power was released along with it. Illusion break. Boom! A burst of dazzling light flashed in front of him, as if he had woken up from a long dream. Chu Hen subconsciously opened his eyes, and what appeared in front of him was a tall and imposing platform that was as tall as the 5 mountains. Clouds and mist lingered, and it was like a fairyland. On the high platform, there were 4 magnificent light pillars that supported the sky. 4 light pillars, one as hot as fire, one as cold as frost, one as black as ink, and one as pure as a rainbow. The scene in front of Chu Hen was none other than the immortal prying platform from before. And on top of the immortal prying platform, there were many motionless figures. Mount Kuan Lu, Tiantong Dynasty, Fong Clan, Heavenly Bamboo Peak, and other forces that came, all seemed to be asleep, immersed in a dream. Astonishment. Absolute astonishment. What a brilliant illusion. Chu Hen kept shaking his head. Looking at the nebula vortex behind the 4 light pillars, Chu Hen felt sincere admiration. It turned out that when the secret realm of the immortal prying platform opened, everyone present was already under the illusion. In fact, they did not enter the secret realm of the immortal prying platform, but were wandering in the illusion. This also explained why the wrought 10 armored soldiers and terracotta soldiers had messy rune patterns on their bodies. It was just to fool people, to mislead the people in the illusion into thinking that it was some kind of rune technique. Later on, the giant stone statues caused everyone to inexplicably kill each other. In a situation where there was no foresight, only the illusion could accomplish all of this. The ancient desolate heaven domain was really too scary. The illusion just now was too real. Chu Hen felt a wave of fear. If he had chosen to release that ruthless aura, he would probably never be able to walk out of it. Just which senior almighty being could set up such an exquisite and peerless illusory technique? At the same time that admiration arose in Chu Hen's heart, his gaze was filled with anticipation as he looked at the vortex passage behind the 4 energy light pillars. This was the entrance to the immortal prying platform in the real world. However, before entering, there was something else that he had to do. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth curled up into a cold smile. He then looked at the people from the Tiantong Dynasty and Fong Clan. He saw that Xiao Meng, Li Wu, and the others were all stunned on the spot, completely defenseless. Although Chu Hen was not a vile person who liked to take advantage of others, he was also not a pedantic person. If he could control them now, it would save him a lot of trouble. However, at this moment, a piercingly cold wind suddenly swept over. Chu Hen was shocked. Before he could react, a dazzling spirit vine flew over and wrapped around Chu Hen's body. Chapter 805. Buzz. On the immortal prying platform, there were 4 pillars of energy that were dazzling. Behind the pillars of light, the entrance to the secret realm of the immortal prying platform was like a starry vortex. The sky was dark and the ground was filled with spiritual mist, adding a touch of dreamy color to the place. When the entrance to the secret realm of the immortal prying platform opened, everyone was already immersed in the illusion. Just as Chu Hen was sighing in admiration at the mysteriousness of the ancient desolate heaven realm and its many changes, Xiao, a sharp wind-breaking sound rang out. A bunch of dazzling spirit vine actually flew out from the inside of the secret realm's passage. Chu Hen, who was unprepared, was directly entangled by the spiritual vine. Then, An irresistible force pulled Chu Hen away from the spot and flashed towards the secret realm's entrance. Buzz, a dazzling white light flashed in front of him. Following that, Chu Hen staggered and almost fell to the ground. Then, a wave of desolate aura that had been sealed for a long time rushed towards him. What entered his eyes was a dark and misty world. This, before Chu Hen could react, a slightly plump figure appeared in front of him. The other party was holding a spiritual vine that was shining brightly. It was obvious that the person in front of him had forcefully pulled him in. Not bad. Although you're a little slower than I expected, you've finally seen through that technique. Without waiting for Chu Hen to speak, that person had already taken the initiative to speak. The person looked to be in his 50s or 60s. He looked at Chu Hen with a smile, giving off a gentle feeling. However, Chu Hen's guard did not decrease. Instead, it increased. He quietly took a few steps back and maintained a distance from the person. "Who are you? Why did you pull me in?" Chu Hen asked in a deep voice. "I saw you dilly-dallying outside, so I decided to give you a hand," the other party said matter-of-factly. Chu Hen was even more astonished. Originally, he thought that he should be the first person to walk out of the illusion. Seems like that was not the case. Although the temperament of the person in front of him was relatively gentle, his entire body was emitting a profound and unfathomable aura. Also, from his tone, it seemed that he had always been paying attention to him. This caused Chu Hen to be even more on guard in his heart. Even so, the gaze with which the old man looked at Chu Hen became more and more satisfied. However, Chu Hen's scalp went numb from the other party's gaze. Why did it feel like he was being targeted by a human trafficker? I didn't expect that a small place like the 100 Kingdom State would have such a talented junior. 100 Kingdom State. How did you know? Chu Hen clenched his fist while he frowned slightly. He sized up the person before him once more, and he was extremely sure that he'd never seen this person in the past. The old man didn't answer him directly. He rubbed a strand of beard on his chin and smiled once more. "I'm able to sense the energy fluctuations of the Heavenly Spirit Seal within your body." Heavenly Spirit Seal. It was created by the number 1 Earth Inscription Master in the 100 Kingdoms State, and Chu Hen had inadvertently obtained it while participating in the 1,000 Crane Sex recruitment test. Under such circumstances, not only did the old man reveal Chu Hen's origins, but he'd even spoken of the Heavenly Spirit Seal. Chu Hen's pupils suddenly shook. "You are..." "Exactly." The old man flicked his sleeve and revealed the aura of an immortal. "I'm called Westwind, and people call me Shifeng Zi." Rumble. As soon as these words were spoken, monstrous waves instantly arose in Chu Hen's heart, and he was completely stunned. Shifeng Zi, the creator of the Heavenly Spirit Seal, the number 1 inscription master in the 100 Kingdom State that had gone missing for over 10 years. He's actually here. What a coincidence. It's simply too much of a coincidence. Chu Hen had some knowledge of Shifeng Zi's deeds. Shifeng Zi was a top genius in inscription master. The various talisman arts he'd left behind were imitated by countless inscription masters in the 100 Kingdom State. Later on, when he was creating a new talisman art, an accident occurred to Shifeng Zi, causing him to suffer a backlash from the energy of the talismans. Since then, he'd vanished without a trace. The world once thought that Shifeng Zi had perished in the world. On the other hand, the demon suppression platform that contained the 4 great inscriptions in the Mang Mountain Forest was the last clue Shifeng Zi had left behind in the 100 Kingdoms State. Chu Hen was shocked and sighed, and the vigilance in the space between his brows had been greatly restrained. Besides feeling shocked, Chu Hen calmed his mind and cupped his fist slightly. "Junior, Chu Hen greets Senior Shifeng Zi." Shifeng Zi nodded in satisfaction. "Did you obtain the scroll of talisman arts that I placed in the demon suppression platform?" "Yes, it's here." Chu Hen moved his palm and casually took out a metal piece that was glowing with a green light. Inside were the various talisman arts of Shifeng Zi. Back then, Chu Hen had relied on the talisman arts inside to conquer Great Firmament City and strengthen the General Alliance. It could be said that Chu Hen owed a lot of Shifeng Zi's kindness. Therefore, Chu Hen had sufficient reason to show respect to him. Shifengzi glanced at the metal piece, but did not take it. He only asked, "Have you mastered all the talisman arts inside?" "I dare not say that I've mastered all of them, but I can basically set them up." Chu Hen said, "Ha, good. The heavens are really helping me." Shifengzi laughed loudly and patted Chu Hen's shoulder approvingly. "Next, you and I will need to cooperate." "Cooperate? What cooperation?" Chu Hen's face was filled with confusion. "Come with me." Shifengzi turned around and led Chu Hen forward. Although Chu Hen was puzzled, he still followed behind the other party. Soon, there was no road in front of them. In front of the two was a broken cliff. Endless waves of heat rushed towards them. Chu Hen's expression changed. He saw that below the cliff in front of him was a sea of raging flames. In the raging flames, magma tumbled. It was like the legendary hell of fire. The scorching heat caused the space to distort. Even though Chu Hen's cultivation had reached the 4th level of the Earth Profound Realm, it was difficult for him to ignore the heat coming towards him. However, below them was a sea of fire, but the area above them was a vast expanse of whiteness. The piercingly cold air shrouded the sky, and the sky was filled with flying snow like goose feathers. The bone-piercing cold wind blew from above, and there was a bone-piercing chill. Ice and fire. In front of Chu Hen was a strange world of overlapping red and white, ice and fire. Looking at the scene in front of him, Chu Hen could not help but wonder if he was still in the illusion and had not woken up yet. What a shocking power! Chu Hen shook his head. This is the 4 kills of earth and sky. It is powered by the 4 energy crystal pillars on the immortal viewing platform outside. Shifengzi said, 4 kills of earth and sky. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes and asked, "You want to go inside through this formation?" "That's right," Shifengzi affirmed. "You can't go through by yourself? I'm just a little short, so I hope you can help me fill in this point." Upon hearing this, Chu Hen clenched his fist slightly. While he was shocked, he was also secretly amazed by Shifengzi's strength. The dangerous aura produced by the hellish 4 kills of earth and sky was enough to make him shrink back, and he did not even have the courage to go through it. However, Chu Hen did not have the intention to agree immediately. He said, "Since the power of this formation is powered by the 4 energy crystal pillars outside, won't the formation be automatically dispelled as long as the 4 energy crystal pillars are destroyed?" "No." Shifengzi shook his head and replied resolutely, "Not only do the 4 energy pillars operate this formation, but they also support the operation of all the runes in the entire immortal viewing platform. If the energy light pillars are destroyed, the entire immortal viewing platform will collapse, and the things inside will be destroyed as well." Chu Hen's eyelids twitched as he looked around and said, "What's inside?" To be honest, this was the main point that Chu Hen was concerned about. In his opinion, it was not a coincidence that Shifengzi appeared here, and the things that could interest him must not be ordinary. Shifengzi hesitated for a moment before he spat out 4 words in a sonorous voice. "Celestial talisman. Spirit tree." "What's that?" Chu Hen asked curiously. "It's normal that you don't know." Shifengzi did not look down on him. It's said that in the extreme south of this world, there's a sacred place called the Celestial Talisman region, and that Celestial Talisman spirit tree originated from there. This item is a rare spirit treasure in the world, and its miraculous effect is able to cause the Tao tree of an inscription master to undergo a tremendous transformation. "What kind of transformation?" Chu Hen continued to ask. "There's too much to say. To put it simply, it's to shed the mortal body and reforge the immortal body." After listening to Shifengzi's simple description, Chu Hen was instantly greatly tempted, and a bright light flickered in his eyes. Shifengzi naturally saw through Chu Hen's thoughts, and he said with a smile, "However, according to what I know, there's only one celestial talisman spirit tree here." So, Chu Hen's heart immediately went cold. Seeing how determined Chu Hen was, it looked like he had no way to compete with him. Moreover, since Shifengzi dared to tell Chu Hen all of this, he naturally had the confidence to win. But Chu Hen was no fool. He wouldn't do anything that didn't benefit him at all. Senior, why don't you find someone else?" Shifeng was still smiling, as if he'd seen through Chu Hen since long ago. I say, silly kid, if you want benefits, just say it. How about this? Besides the celestial talisman spirit tree, I'll give everything inside to you. The secret realm of the immortal prying platform was so mysterious. So it was obvious that the celestial talisman spirit tree was not the only spiritual treasure. Even so, Shifeng only wanted one thing, and this was enough to show how attractive the celestial talisman spirit tree was. This? What? You don't believe me? Shifeng asked in reply. Not really. Chu Hen lightly smiled. Shifeng was still extremely famous in the 100 Nations province. Although it was rumored that he had an eccentric temper, his negative reputation was still very little. What's that? Junior's friends are still trapped in the illusion. I'm worried about them. No worries. Shifeng directly interrupted Chu Hen's words. That illusion isn't a killing formation. Even if they die in there, they'll only fall into a deep sleep. As long as the illusion is broken, they'll naturally wake up. The worry in Chu Hen's eyes decreased slightly. In other words, as long as the illusion wasn't broken, they wouldn't wake up. In this way, he and Shifeng had enough time to go to the ordinary celestial talisman spirit tree. Of course, the prerequisite was that there wasn't a third person who could break the illusion. And right at this moment, Shifeng expression suddenly changed as he said in a low voice, "Silly kid, you don't have time to consider? Someone else has broken the illusion." Oh? Chapter 806. You don't have time to think about it. Someone has broken the illusion again, and it's 3 people this time. Shifeng words interrupted Chu Hen's thoughts. 3 people? The figures of a young woman and 2 middle-aged men flashed in Chu Hen's mind. Needless to say, he could guess that it was those 3 people who had broken the illusion this time. Chu Hen did not know much about the origins of these 3 people. However, when he was in the illusion, Chu Hen could tell from the reactions of the people from other forces that the so-called that place was definitely not an ordinary person. They're going to come in. Shifeng squinted his old eyes and glanced at the dark entrance of the nebulous storm-like passage in the sky behind him. Then, he looked at Chu Hen. Without much hesitation, Chu Hen's eyes flashed with determination. "How can I help you?" Shifeng said with a calm and gentle smile. "Triple shield phantasm, oh. Triple shield phantasm?" Upon hearing these words, Chu Hen's expression changed slightly. This was the most difficult defensive rune technique among the ancient books left by Shifeng. Even if one had the attainments of an Earth Inscription Master, one might not necessarily be able to set it up without the help of external forces. With Chu Hen's current level, he needed a lot of time and the help of external forces to complete this technique alone. Of course, Chu Hen was just an assistant. Shifeng was the leader. Do you remember the rune arrangement of the triple shield phantasm clearly? Shifeng gave the final confirmation. Chu Hen nodded solemnly. I remember. Very good. Time is of the essence. Let's talk about it as we go. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, a majestic Reiki energy surged out of Shifeng's Niwen Palace. Chu Hen's expression changed slightly. Shifeng's cultivation was much more advanced than when he was in the 100 Kingdom state. He was likely to have surpassed the level of an Earth Pattern Master and reached the level of a Heavenly Pattern Master. Along with the rhythmic space, Shifeng flicked his fingers continuously. Thousands of gorgeous runes, like fluorescent silver butterflies, appeared outside his body. Dazzling flowers fell from the sky. Chu Hen's eyes were dazzled, and he was overwhelmed. The speed at which the runes were condensed was truly admirable. Previously, Chu Hen thought that the speed at which he condensed runes was already considered very fast. But now, he finally understood what it meant by "there's always someone better out there." Buzz. A series of mysterious runes revolved around Shifeng and Chu Hen. Shifeng raised his left hand and stretched out his middle, index, and ring fingers. 1-star shield. Zung, a slight air wave arose. The thousands of runes flying between heaven and earth seemed to be attracted by a strong force and rapidly approached the center. The gorgeous runes rapidly turned into beams of light and intertwined with each other. In an instant, they formed a spherical light shield with a diameter of about 10 meters. Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi seemed to be in a bubble. Every angle was isolated. Streaks of flowing light swam on the surface of the shield, giving them a very solid sense of security. Two-star shield. Shifeng Zi shouted again in a deep voice and lowered a finger. In the next moment, the thousands of runes on the second layer converged again. Like a flock of butterflies returning to their nest, they intertwined and connected. Then, outside the spherical light shield, there was an additional layer of cuboid protective shield. The cubic shield was like a crystal box. Its diameter was twice the size of the inner circular shield. Three-star shield. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, the third layer of the shield was formed. A dazzling pyramid-shaped, triangular spatial shield immediately enveloped the outermost area. The three great defensive shields could be called an absolute defense. The heat and cold waves of the outside world were blocked. Chu Hen exclaimed in admiration from the bottom of his heart. This was the first time he had personally witnessed the triple mystic shield. He could clearly feel the strength of this defensive rune technique. Ready, let's go. Shifeng Zi didn't intend to stay any longer. With a cold look in his eyes, he waved his hands like a willow. A light air wave stacked up. Chu Hen only felt that there was nothing under his feet. Immediately, he and Shifeng Zi jumped into the 4 kills of earth and heaven under the defense of the 3-star shields. The scorching hot magma was under their feet. It was as red as the sea. Bone-chilling ice and snow were in the sky. It was a vast expanse of white. It was a dreamlike scene, but it was very real. Whoosh! Just as Shifeng Zi and Chu Hen took a step forward, a dazzling white light flickered in the area behind them. In the next second, a powerful wave of qi rushed over, and 3 figures with extraordinary temperaments appeared in the sky. Miss Lan, looks like you're the first person to arrive here, the middle-aged man in green said with admiration. The young woman raised her eyebrows. There was a trace of unconcealable emotion in her eyes. As long as we can obtain the spirit tree of celestial talismans, our mission here will be completed, the other middle-aged man said. However, this 4 kills of earth and heaven can't be underestimated. Uncle Ko, Uncle Gang, I need some time to set up the defensive rune technique. Help me seal the entrance here. Don't let anyone come in, the woman said lightly. The 2 middle-aged men nodded, indicating that they knew what to do. We understand. The spirit tree of celestial talismans was a treasure that countless people dreamed of. As far as the 3 of them were concerned, the fewer people that came in, the better. Subsequently, the woman flipped her palm. A beam of light flashed, and a sparkling lotus appeared in her palm. I'll need you next, 1,000-leaf lotus throne. Buzz, buzz. At this moment, Chu Hen followed Shifeng Zi and had already arrived at the inner area of the 4 kills of earth and heaven. Even with the absolute defense of the triple shield, the scorching air wave and the bone-chilling cold flow were still able to penetrate through. Prison of 10,000 flames, 9 heavens of ice and snow. The sea of red magma below caused one's head to go numb, and one didn't dare to take another look. The ice and snow in the sky roared, and the ice crystal snowflakes landed on the top of the outermost triangular shield, quickly forming a thin layer of frost. Silly kid, don't be too nervous. With me here, you definitely won't die. Shifeng Zi said. The corner of Chu Hen's eye twitched slightly. It seemed like saying such words usually led to accidents. However, Chu Hen had already boarded the pirate ship, and there was no way out. He had to charge forward no matter what. Senior, I'm fine. I'm not nervous, but the Reiki energy fluctuations seem to be a little large. Don't you talk nonsense? Shifeng Zi glared at him and scolded unhappily. You don't know how strong the killing Earth-Heaven formation is. Even if it's me, I won't be able to sustain it for too long with the rate at which my spirit energy is being consumed. Then do you need my help? Not for now. Conserve the Reiki energy now. Don't waste a single bit. But seeing Shifeng Zi's serious expression, Chu Hen couldn't help but nod solemnly. As they went deeper, the resistance they encountered also increased infinitely. In the world of ice and fire, Shifengzi and Chu Hen were like a lone boat in a river. The storm is coming, Shifengzi suddenly shouted in a deep voice. Chu Hen's heart skipped a beat, and there was a lot of seriousness in his eyes. Boom! As soon as he said that, the endless fire territory suddenly rose up into the sky, and magma rose into the sky. Overwhelming airwaves swept over, and monstrous pillars of fire were like raging dragons out of the sea, stirring up the heaven and earth, and pouncing toward the two of them. In the sky, the ice whirlwind roared, and countless hailstones fell like a meteor shower, continuously hitting the outer triangular shield. Every impact caused the surface of a shield to shake violently, and layers of ripples appeared on it. In an instant, Chu Hen and Shifengzi were directly in the middle of the iceberg and the sea of fire, and there were signs that they would be destroyed at any time. However, this storm was continuous, and not only did it not seem to be stopping, but it also became more and more violent. Suddenly, in the area where the ice and snow intertwined, a bright moon appeared out of nowhere. The bright moon was like a bright mirror, hanging high in the sky, so close that it seemed that it could be reached by stretching out one's hand. Although it was beautiful, Chu Hen knew that its appearance was definitely not a good thing. Buzz! Then, Chu Hen's pupils suddenly shrank, and he saw that the bright moon suddenly burst out a dazzling light. Endless light beams, like the divine rays of the sun, lit up the void. The light beams that blotted out the sky and covered the earth all crashed onto the three dipper shield. Chu Hen and Shifengzi's figures rapidly turned into two tiny black dots, as if they were swallowed by the light. The extreme light caused Chu Hen's vision to be temporarily affected. About 5 seconds later, the light faded. Chu Hen shook his head, which was not very clear, and looked up again. The bright moon had disappeared, but on the outermost layer of the shield, there were dozens of fist-sized holes. What a terrifying, penetrating power. Hiss! Chu Hen could not help but feel a chill down his spine. Fortunately, he had the TriStar shield, otherwise, he would definitely be riddled with holes. Senior, steady, Shifengzi interrupted what Chu Hen was about to say. The next attack will be doubled, no way. Double the amount? Chu Hen was shocked again. Just now, the first layer of the shield was almost destroyed. How good would it be if the power was doubled? I need to repair the TriStar shield. Shifengzi paused, and then said, Now, you will be in charge of controlling the movement, okay? Without any hesitation, Chu Hen agreed in a deep voice. At a time like this, the best choice was to do, as Shifengzi said. Use your Reiki energy to control these runes. As Shifengzi spoke, he flicked out a few rays of light. Buzz! Then, on the left and in front of Chu Hen, a few light patterns lit up, emitting a soft light that flickered between bright and dark. With Chu Hen's understanding of the TriStar shield, he did not need much explanation from Shifengzi. He was very clear about what to do next. Immediately, a surge of Reiki energy spread out from Chu Hen's Naiwan Palace. Under Chu Hen's control, the Reiki energy was divided into several light beams, which probed and wrapped around the runes. Senior, you can hand it over, hold it tight. After saying that, Shifengzi directly withdrew the control of the runes. The next moment, Chu Hen suddenly felt the pressure, as if he was holding a heavy stone in his hand, and the consumption of the Reiki energy flew up. Chapter 807. Rumble, buzz. The sea of fire roared, and the ice waves were monstrous. Chu Hen assisted Shifengzi, and under the protection of the triple dipper shield, they were like a small boat passing through the layers of wind and waves. The scorching magma flames constantly slapped the outermost defensive shield from below and on both sides. The wind and clouds stirred the hailstones in the sky. Under the ever-increasing pressure, Chu Hen did not even dare to breathe, and he carefully controlled the movement of the triple dipper shield. At the same time, Shifengzi repaired the outermost triangular pyramid shield as fast as he could. Vigorous Reiki energy flowed out of Shifengzi's body like a clear spring, and it rushed to the dozens of holes in the outer shield. Under the replenishment of the secret runes, the holes and punctures slowly shrunk and then healed. Seeing that Shifeng Zi had repaired the shield successfully, Chu Hen heaved a sigh of relief. However, in the next second, Chu Hen's face changed. In the area in front of them, a huge bright moon and stars appeared again. The terrifying pressure was like the sun in the sky. This bright moon was suspended above the heads of Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi. It was tens of thousands of feet wide, and the pressure was like facing Mount Tai. Buzz. Then, the bright moon once again bloomed with thousands of rays of light. The whole world was illuminated by the aurora, and the endless light directly engulfed the two of them together with the triple dipper shield. The extremely penetrating light was comparable to countless sharp arrows shot at the same time. Bang! With a loud explosion, the outermost layer of the pyramid-shaped shield was instantly crushed into pieces. At the same time, Chu Hen could not open his eyes, and he only felt a tingling pain on his skin, as if he was being pricked by dense needles. It was unbearable. After about 10 seconds, the light faded and the bright moon disappeared. Chu Hen opened his eyes, and he could not help but take 2 deep breaths. That feeling just now was really like a brush with death, and the psychological pressure alone was enough to choke him. Don't relax. Shifeng Zi's tone was solemn. The power of the 4 kills of Earth-Heaven formation was much more terrifying than he had expected. Chu Hen exhaled deeply and steadied his mind. The outermost layer of the shield had already been destroyed, and there were many small holes on the second layer of the shield. It was hard to imagine what would happen if he did it again. Shifeng Zi quickly repaired the second layer of the shield and said, "Hold on, we have already broken through more than half of the 4 kills of Earth-Heaven array. How much longer until we get there?" Chu Hen was eager to know the answer. "Soon, but the hardest part is yet to come." Shifeng Zi's expression was solemn. After repairing the second layer of the shield, he conjured a string of runes to strengthen the outer layer of defense. "Do you see those strange whirlpools?" "A whirlpool?" Chu Hen was startled. "Where?" When he focused his attention, he saw that the space in front of him was actually filled with strange grayish-black whirlpools. The largest of these whirlpools was 2 meters in diameter, and the smallest was only the size of a wash basin. Inside each black whirlpool, there were flashes of light that flickered rapidly. Obscure but restless energy waves were released from within, giving off a mysterious and unpredictable feeling. "What is that?" Chu Hen frowned slightly. "Devouring hole, which is also known as a wormhole in the outside world." Shifeng Zi replied, "Devouring hole?" Hearing this name, Chu Hen's eyes immediately surged with an unprecedented seriousness. He had only seen the term devouring hole in ancient books. It was said that when the strength of one's strength reached a certain level, it could tear space and pierce through heaven and earth. Once the space could not withstand the strength and split open, there would be a spatial crack. The so-called devouring hole was formed by the continuous formation of the spatial crack. However, once a human fell into a devouring hole, it would really be beyond redemption. The spatial turbulence within the devouring hole could instantly tear a person into pieces. So devouring holes really exist in this world. Chu Hen muttered to himself in a low voice. Shifeng Zi glanced at him. "What? You think it's fake?" Chu Hen did not reply. He was still shocked in his heart. Truthfully speaking, in the past, Chu Hen thought devouring hole was more or less an exaggerated description from the outside world. How terrifying would the strength of a person who could tear space apart be? It was really unimaginable. "I'm really a frog at the bottom of a well." Chu Hen could not help but laugh as he shook his head. Seeing this, Shifeng Zi could not help but say, "When the strength of the strength reaches a level where even space cannot withstand it, it can cause space to tear apart." There are also a few types of devouring holes. Some devouring holes will devour everything nearby. Some devouring holes contain some kind of special energy, and it is said that there is a type of devouring hole that connects 2 different spaces that are worlds apart. But Shifeng Zi paused for a moment before continuing. As long as it is a devouring hole, we must avoid it as far as possible. No matter if it is you or me, we will die upon touching it. Death upon touching it. The last 4 words were spoken with great force. Chu Hen nodded his head seriously, then carefully avoided the danger in front of him. Although devouring holes were dangerous, fortunately, there were not many of them. There would only be one every few hundred meters, and the biggest one was only 2 meters. Even compared to the sea of flames below, it was not threatening at all. Boom! Bang! Just like what Shi Fingzi said, the further they went, the fiercer the impact of the strength they had to endure. Pillars of fire and snow were like ferocious beasts tearing at the 2 of them. The continuous attacks caused the outer layer of the square defensive shield to shake. The thick light curtain was like a bubble that was constantly distorting. The situation was worrying. The Reiki energy of the 2 was being consumed at an alarming rate. Especially for Chu Hen, the Reiki energy produced by the street tree in his Naiwan palace could not keep up with the consumption. At this moment, Shi Fengzi casually handed over a brown pill. The 3rd storm is coming. Chu Hen was slightly shocked. Without much hesitation, he took the pill and put it into his mouth. In an instant, a surging wave of Reiki energy filled Chu Hen's Naiwan palace. Chu Hen could not help but be shocked, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. At the same time, Shi Fengzi also put a similar pill into his mouth. Don't hold back. We must give it our all. Kaboom! As soon as he finished speaking, the clouds in the sky rolled. Along with the vibration of the space that was many times more chaotic than before, a dazzling sun appeared in front of the 2 of them. There seemed to be a low chanting sound coming from all directions. This was the sound made by the light beam shuttling through the air. The sun was high in the sky, and thousands of divine rays poured down, covering the sky and covering the earth, attacking in all directions. Everything in the world turned into nothingness in an instant. Ice, snow, and fire. Chu Hen and Shi Fengzi, who were wrapped in the Triple Dipper shield, were instantly engulfed by the hundreds of millions of divine rays. If they had a brush with death just now, it was equivalent to the death god putting a sickle on their necks now. Bang! Chapter 808. Buzz, a boundless destructive aura surged forth. The 9 heavens illuminating sun released a myriad of divine rays that blotted out the sky and covered the earth at this moment. Everything in the surroundings seemed to be engulfed by this terrifying light. Snowstorms, magma, flames, and all sorts of energy were reduced to nothingness by this death ray that was comparable to countless divine swords. Chu Hen's pupils rapidly shrank as he stared blankly at the outer layer of the square shield being smashed to pieces. In the next instant, the last remaining layer of the shield was pierced by the sharp arrows. Holes appeared and began to expand rapidly. Subsequently, Shi Fengzi and Chu Hen were engulfed by the endless waves of light for the 3rd time. This was the impact of the death ray. It had the terrifying power to destroy anything. Buzz! Chu Hen's blurry consciousness gradually became clear, and the vast light receded like the tide. From start to finish, only a few seconds had passed. However, to Chu Hen, it was as if he had endured for a century. He was still alive. As Chu Hen steadied his mind, he saw Shi Fengzi continuously casting a series of runes and secret scrolls, repairing the last layer of a shield at the fastest speed possible. What's that? Chu Hen was somewhat astonished as he looked at the cloak-like object floating in the air. This cloak flowed and flickered with a brilliant crystalline luster. It was like a giant with its arms open, holding the last layer of the shield in front of it. It was obvious that it was because of this peculiar cloak that the last layer of the shield was not destroyed. Senior, so you're prepared? Chu Hen said with relief. Shi Fengzi smiled slightly proudly. If I didn't have a few treasures on hand, how would I have the nerve to come out and roam the Jianghu? As he spoke, Shi Fengzi pointed at the cloak and said, This Luoyin cloak of mine is a defensive saint weapon forged with tens of billions of precious materials. It can be used as a saint armor, and it can also transform into a shield. It can be used in many ways. Chu Hen smiled. Just as he was about to answer, he saw something from the corner of his eye, and his heart immediately lit up. Senior, immortal talisman spirit tree. What? Shifeng Zi's heart also trembled, and he hurriedly looked in the direction that Chu Hen was pointing. About a few hundred meters in front of him was a steep mountain cliff. Behind the cliff were a few mountain peaks. The mountain peaks stood around the cliff. From afar, it looked like a huge concave character. At the center of the concave character was a vast platform. At the center of the Tao platform, it was resplendent and dazzling, a deluge of heavenly flowers falling. A strange giant tree that was more than 1,000 meters tall appeared here like a god. The appearance of this giant tree was extremely similar to the Tao tree of the inscription masters. It was similarly bright and resplendent. Every inch of the branches, every leaf flickered with the light of runes. The entire tree seemed to be glowing with the brilliance of the stars and the moon. In such an area, the tree was like the bright moon among the stars, attracting attention. Spiritual mist rose in the sky, lingering around it. Immortal chi floated in the air. Immortal talisman spirit tree. It really is the immortal talisman spirit tree. For the first time, Shifeng Zi lost his composure in front of Chu Hen. He hurriedly exclaimed, "Hurry, speed up." "Got it," Chu Hen lazily replied. Although it was also his first time seeing the immortal talisman spirit tree, he was naturally displeased, thinking that he did not have a share of such a treasure. Immediately, Chu Hen released Reiki energy and controlled the defensive barrier to quickly move forward. As they were about to pass through the 4 deaths of heaven and earth formation, the sea of flames below and the roaring of the ice and snow in the sky quietened down greatly. There was no need to doubt the excitement. "I really have to thank you this time." Shifeng Zi sincerely thanked him. Chu Hen glanced at him with a little disdain. "No need for thanks. You just have to fulfill your conditions." Shifeng Zi found it funny. "I always keep my word. I only want the immortal talisman spirit tree. Can you please hurry up?" Okay. Don't rush me, okay?" When they were less than 20 meters away from the edge of the cliff, both of their faces were filled with joy. However, at this moment, an extremely agitated energy wave suddenly appeared in front of them. "Oh no, stop!" Shifeng Zi's expression changed drastically as he hurriedly shouted. However, it was too late. Without any warning, the circular shield collided with a black vortex that was only the size of a bowl. Boom! Along with a loud explosion, the space trembled violently. The circular energy shield and the Luo Yin cloak that hovered outside were instantly pulverized into powder. Like a burst bubble, Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi were immediately exposed to the air. Rolling heat waves and bone-piercing cold currents surged up and down, followed by a boundless aura of danger. "Go! Quickly go over!" At this critical moment, Shifeng Zi shouted sternly. Chu Hen didn't have the slightest bit of hesitation. With his fastest speed, he used the shaking light movement technique and drew a bright arc of light in the air. He immediately went around the black whirlpool in front of him and swept towards the back of the cliff. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two of them landed at almost the same time. When they turned back, they saw that the flames and ice had already merged together. The world of red and white wantonly stacked up, and the shattered pieces of the Luo Yin cloak were completely devoured like dust. So close, so scary. Is that the power of the devouring whole? Chu Hen's heart was still pounding, and his face was slightly pale. The devouring whole, just now, was only the size of a bowl, but it was able to instantly shatter the double defense of the shield and the Luo Yin cloak. If he had not reacted in time and was closer to the edge of the cliff, the consequences would have been unimaginable. "Senior, I'm sorry for destroying one of your treasures," Chu Hen said apologetically. Shifeng Zi waved his hand. "It happened too suddenly, so it's normal that you didn't react in time. At that time, just compensate me with a piece of saint armor." This sentence instantly caused Chu Hen to be speechless. When he heard the first half of the sentence, he thought that Duan Ling Tian was trying to comfort Chu Hen, but who would have thought that the situation would be reversed? compensate you with an umbrella. If you didn't keep urging me, would I have hit the devouring hole? Chu Hen cursed in a low voice. Subsequently, the two of them turned around and looked at the Tao platform in front of them. Both sides of the Tao platform were majestic and imposing, like the mountain gods that guarded the spirit talisman tree. At the center of the Tao platform, the spirit talisman tree towered into the sky. Its branches were luxuriant, and its enormous crown was like a beautiful crystal cloud. Beneath this spirit talisman tree, Chu Hen and Shifeng Zi seemed extremely tiny. A boundless holy aura emanated from it. Shifeng Zi's footsteps were slightly hurried, and his aged face was filled with emotion. The closer he got to the spirit talisman tree, the more he was able to feel the pure and powerful energy emitted by the tree. Subsequently, Shifeng Zi's footsteps stopped. A rectangular white jade platform was placed beneath the tree in front of the spirit talisman tree. 3 items were placed on the platform. Shifeng Zi's eyes lit up, and he was just about to stretch out his hand to take it when Chu Hen's voice sounded from behind. Chapter 809. This is mine. Don't you dare touch it. When Shifeng Zi heard the voice behind him, he was slightly stunned. He then turned around and said with a smile, I just want to help you take a look at what these are. After that, Shifeng Zi directly grabbed the first item on the white jade table. It was a jade slip, and there was an exquisite rune pattern on the edge that sealed it. Shifeng Zi directly used his Reiki energy to look into it. Then, his eyes lit up, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. When Chu Hen saw Shifeng Zi's expression, he immediately had a bad premonition. Old man, you have to keep your word. This is mine. As Chu Hen spoke, he hurriedly reached out to snatch the jade slip from Shifeng Zi's hand. Shifeng Zi's eyes narrowed, and he waved his sleeve to block Chu Hen. He then switched his hand to hold the jade slip tightly in his palm. Hee, of course I keep my word. I'll definitely give it to you. Then why aren't you giving it to me? Don't be in such a hurry. I'll immediately give it to you after I make a copy. Shameless, Chu Hen scolded. Shifeng Zi blew his beard and glared at Lin Fan. Brat, you destroyed my Luo Yin cloak. You should at least give me some compensation, right? Besides, it's not like I don't want to give it to you. The ancient books and secret scrolls recorded inside are all extremely profound rune techniques. You won't be able to understand them without 5 or 6 years. Wait for me to study them carefully, then I'll impart them to you. Isn't that killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Keep on bluffing. Chu Hen's face was filled with disdain and dissatisfaction. Shifeng Zi was slightly helpless. Why are you so unreasonable? How about this? How about this? After we leave the ancient desolation heaven domain, we'll study this jade slip together. I'll definitely teach you everything I've learned. Chu Hen found it funny. He thought to himself that this old man was really obsessed with rune techniques. For the sake of this jade scroll, he had actually put down his pride. However, Chu Hen was not surprised by this situation. After all, this was the first time the two of them had met. If they cooperated without understanding each other, it would be like asking a tiger for its hide. Fortunately, Shifeng Zi was not a tiger. Otherwise, with his cultivation, he could have forcibly taken these things for himself instead of choosing to discuss with Chu Hen again and again. From the beginning until now, Chu Hen could practically be said to be a self-taught genius in the path of runic arts. If he could study with Shifeng Zi after leaving the ancient desolate heaven domain, it would be a great opportunity. At this moment, Shifeng Zi's gaze had already sneaked a peek at the other 2 items. Damn you, Chu Hen loudly scolded. Then, with his sharp eyes and quick hands, he flashed in front of the white jade stone platform with lightning speed. With one hand, he scooped up an item and firmly held it in his hand. If you dare to compete with me again, I'll really fight you to the death, old man. Shifeng Zi said with a smug and curious expression. Let me help you see what treasure it is. There's no need for you to come. I'll do it myself. Chu Hen turned his body to the side, his gaze first looking at the item in his left hand. It was a small square box with simple and unadorned workmanship. With a light flick of his finger, the lid of the box was opened. Along with a fresh fragrance that had been sealed for a long time, a five-colored pill appeared before Chu Hen's eyes. Buzz, wisps of energy fluctuations were emitted from the pill, and a misty cyan light surrounded the pill, faintly transforming into the shadow of an immortal tree. Saint Fusion Pill. Shifeng Zi obviously restrained himself and continued to say, "How about selling it to me? I'll offer a saint weapon of the list and 100 billion high-grade origin crystal stones." The other party's sudden bid caused Chu Hen to be slightly shocked. Immediately, he asked calmly, "Oh, this Saint Fusion Pill is worth so much?" Nonsense. The minimum requirement to refine the Saint Fusion Pill is to be a heavenly inscription master. Moreover, looking at the color and clarity of the Saint Fusion Pill, it means that its quality is still high. How about it? Are you selling it? Not selling. Chu Hen rejected immediately. I'll add on another saint weapon of the list. Shifeng Zi did not give up. Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows raised. This old man really had a lot of treasures on him. However, this also proved the uniqueness of the Saint Fusion Pill. If you want me to give you this sacred fusion pill, that's fine too. Really? Shifeng Zi's eyes lit up. However, Chu Hen's voice paused for a moment. Then he pointed at the towering crystal tree in front of him that was like a god. "Give it to me. Scram, as far as you can. Forget it." Shifeng Zi sneered disdainfully. "Even if you have 10 Saint Fusion Pills, don't even think about taking the immortal talisman spirit tree." Chu Hen smiled and did not say anything else. After the jade slip and the Saint Fusion Pill, the third item was a strange tree branch. The tree branch looked like a coral branch at the bottom of the sea. It was red and had a hard texture. It felt heavy in his hand. "What is this?" Chu Hen asked. Shifeng Zi glanced at it indifferently. There was not much change in his expression. "Blood coral heart. Is it worthless?" "Nonsense again. Are all the things that can be placed here dry?" Shifeng Zi retorted, then continued. "Did you pass through the blood forest when you came in?" "Yes." Chu Hen nodded. "If you plant this blood coral heart in the ground, it will turn into a blood forest." "What?" Chu Hen's heart immediately lit up. When he entered, he had a deep understanding of the power of the blood forest. If he did not pass by, Dan Zhen and the people from the country of Conquering Cloud would have died there. The blood coral heart can be considered a priceless treasure to a sect or organization. It can form a dense defensive forest. Once an outsider invades, it will definitely be a very effective barrier. But Shifeng Zi shook his head. To someone like me who has the world as my home and is free and unfettered, it's completely useless. No wonder. After hearing Shifeng Zi's explanation, Chu Hen could not help but laugh. He thought to himself, if a blood forest similar to this immortal prying platform was planted outside Mount Kunliu, how spectacular would it be? If an outsider invaded, how many people would be able to break through? After looking at these three items, Shifeng Zi's gaze returned to the immortal talisman spirit tree. Standing in front of this towering tree that was over 1,000 meters tall, it was truly spectacular. The sparkling and translucent tree trunk, the radiant branches and leaves, every leaf was like a dazzling star. It was a deluge of heavenly flowers, dazzling the eyes. Shifeng Zi walked forward step by step. His steps were steady, and his eyes shone with excitement. When he walked under the tree, there was a thin layer of fog in the air, like ripples on the surface of water. Under Chu Hen's astonished gaze, Shifeng Zi slowly raised his left hand. Shing! With a trembling sound, a wisp of energy streaked across his palm. A wound of about 5 centimeters appeared on Shifeng Zi's left palm. Bright red blood flowed out. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and his face revealed some astonishment. Following that, a powerful Reiki energy spread out from Shifeng Zi's Naiwan Palace. The vigorous Reiki energy gathered on his left arm, and with a flowing posture, it turned into a railing-shaped rune that looked a little like the word fence. This is? Chu Hen recognized this rune. It was a rune that fused one's own strength with some kind of spiritual treasure. Once the fusion was successful, the treasure would belong to only one person. It was equivalent to dripping a drop of blood to recognize the owner, forming a contract with the owner, Wong Wong. The aura released by Shifeng Zi continued to strengthen. His left hand condensed, and the blood that flowed out formed threads of blood mist that revolved around the fence rune. In the next moment, the color of the rune changed from a magnificent gold to a strange red. Immediately after, Shifeng Zi extended his arm, and with the rune, he pressed his palm onto the trunk of the immortal talisman tree. Crash! In that instant, a strange energy fluctuation spread out in all directions. The leaves of the immortal talisman tree swayed, emitting a clear and melodious sound like a silver bell. Light sparkled, dazzling, and caused the surrounding mountain peaks to be illuminated with a myriad of colors. Shifeng Zi quickly circulated the Reiki energy, and the light around his body immediately turned red. Activate! Accompanied by a shout, a surging wave of air rose from Shifeng Zi's left palm. Immediately after, rays of red light flowed out from his fingertips, and along the tree trunk, it extended up and down the immortal talisman tree. The spectacular and strange scene caused Chu Hen to be even more shocked. Although Shifeng Zi, who was standing under the tree, seemed so small, his aura was so strong. The blood-colored light that flowed from his fingertips continuously spread along the surface of the immortal talisman tree, and the surface of the tree quickly lit up with exquisite and complicated runes. The blood-colored vines bypassed these runes, causing them to turn red one by one. They looked like the ancient inscriptions and contained infinite mysteries and mysteries. Very quickly, the entire immortal talisman tree glowed with a faint red light. The ground of the entire Dao platform square trembled faintly. The sky changed color, and clouds surged. The towering tree was continuously enveloped by Shifeng Zi's aura. Rumble. A series of heavy explosions rang out one after another, and the ground constantly cracked open like a spider's web. Immediately after, Shifeng Zi raised his right hand again. Hiss! A ray of air flashed, and a cut appeared on his right palm once again. Fresh blood flowed out and fused with the Reiki energy, forming a second fence rune. Hum. Chapter 8:10. Buzz. When the second red rune was imprinted on the celestial talisman tree, a layer of vast light spread out like a ripple. Reiki energy that was mixed with traces of red light quickly spread out, like vines wandering around the entire body of the celestial talisman tree. In the blink of an eye, the entire celestial talisman tree was like an incomparably huge red birdcage. Heaven and earth changed color. Clouds rolled. Dazzling light constantly blossomed and swayed, like a deluge of heavenly flowers. Like millions of stars, the entire heaven and earth was completely illuminated by the dazzling light. Shifeng Zi, who was under the celestial talisman tree, was tiny, but he was like a demonic ape with shocking godly strength. His head of black and white hair fluttered, and his clothes fluttered, showing off his extraordinary aura. Rumble. The ground unceasingly split open like a spider web, spreading in all directions. Every inch of stone bricks and mud shattered, flying wantonly. A piercingly cold and fierce air current struck Chu Hen's body. Looking at the scene before him, a faint cold light faintly flashed across Chu Hen's eyes. Currently, Shifeng Zi could be said to be defenseless. If he made a move now, then this celestial talisman tree would be his. However, it was only a short thought before Chu Hen's eyes regained their calm. Although Chu Hen knew that he was not a gentleman, he was also not a treacherous person. He would not do something like secretly injuring someone. Moreover, did Shifeng Zi really not have his guard up? Not necessarily. The other party could definitely be called an experienced person. With his thoughts, he would not leave his back to a person he had not known for long. Once he had evil thoughts, the first person to fall would most likely be himself. Chu Hen boy, stand firm. I'm going to harvest this spirit tree. The heroic and heavy voice was like thunder piercing the ears. Chu Hen's mind was startled, his pupils constricting slightly. In the next instant, the ground cracked and shook uneasily. Boom! A wave of monstrous Reiki energy shot into the sky like a fire pillar, its boundless aura shaking the world. In an instant, the 1,000-meter-tall immortal symbol tree was forcefully pulled out from the ground by Shifeng Zi. The terrifying chi waves swept out in all directions with earth-shattering momentum. A thick layer of soil was directly scraped off. Together with the strong wind, it surged into the sky like a swarm of startled moths. What a powerful strength! Chu Hen secretly sucked in a breath of cold air and immediately released his true inner force to form a defensive shield in front of him. The crystal-like giant immortal talisman spirit tree was uprooted. Countless tree roots were like awakened dragons, rushing out from the ground. "Return!" Shifeng Zi shouted loudly. The veins all over his body bulged, and his old face was filled with excitement. Buzz! The waves surged and surged, blood markings covering the world. The immortal talisman tree shone brightly, tens of thousands of runes flickering in unison. Next, Shifeng Zi's Niwen palace opened wide as a bright luster blossomed from between his brows. Together with an extremely strong suction force, the immortal talisman spirit tree that was enveloped by the red runes rapidly turned into a shadow, becoming illusory and faintly discernible. Swoosh! Soon after, Shifeng Zi leapt up, directly flying 100 meters into the sky as a glorious sunlight erupted from his body. His arms spread out, as if he was embracing the heavens. The illusory, immortal talisman spirit tree turned into a wisp of green light and directly surged towards the space between Shifeng Zi's brows. Shifeng Zi's Niwen palace was currently as vast as the sea, absorbing all the water from the 9 heavens. Buzz! In an instant, the enormous immortal talisman spirit tree was shockingly absorbed into Shifeng Zi's body. Magnificent beyond compare. The shocking scene caused Chu Hen to involuntarily sigh in his heart, while at the same time feeling much envy. After successfully seizing the immortal talisman spirit tree, Reiki energy churned outside Shifeng Zi's body. His entire body glowed as an extremely powerful force continuously leaked out. This was caused by the instability of the immortal talisman spirit tree's power. Even so, the other party's face was filled with intense joy. Rumble. However, before Shifeng Zi and Chu Hen could prepare what would happen next, the ground suddenly caved in. A black hole had appeared where the immortal talisman spirit tree had previously been. The size of the sinkhole continued to expand as the ground crumbled inch by inch. The hole was like a giant mouth that led to hell, a bottomless abyss. Bang! Before Chu Hen could react, a dark pillar of light surged out from the abyss. Heaven and earth trembled, and deep cracks appeared on the surrounding mountain peaks and cliffs. Shifeng Zi, who was in the sky, hurriedly retreated. As for the ground beneath Chu Hen's feet, it collapsed like tofu, revealing a bottomless abyss below. Chu Hen directly collapsed the ground and floated above the abyss. "Go!" Shifeng Zi loudly shouted. This was the only thought in Chu Hen's mind. In a hurry, he hurriedly retreated. However, before Chu Hen could retreat in time, a boundless tide-like gray light once again surged out from the abyss below, directly enveloping Chu Hen within. In the next instant, an irresistible gravitational force filled every inch of Chu Hen's skin. Under the pressure of an extremely heavy burden, the terrifying gravity was like an invisible giant hand, forcibly dragging Chu Hen down straight into the bottomless abyss. "Chu Hen, you brat!" Shifeng Zi's expression changed. He frowned and watched helplessly as Chu Hen was dragged into the bottom of the abyss. A wisp of helplessness and a faint sense of shame surged in his heart. Shifeng Zi helplessly sighed. "I'm sorry, I can't do anything." Although he had just met Chu Hen, as someone from the 100 Nations Prefecture, he more or less felt a little guilty. However, things had already come to this, and everything was useless. Immediately, Shifeng Zi sighed again and shook his head. Then his figure moved, turning into a ray of flowing light and disappearing into the boundless clouds and mist. What a shocking movement! At this moment, in the storm of power from the Earth-Heaven Four Kills formation, a gorgeous lotus surrounded by seven-colored light was steadily and quickly shuttling through the world of ice and fire. This lotus was more than 10 meters wide, and the colorful light it emitted formed a seven-colored bubble-like shield, isolating the impact of the Earth-Heaven Four Kills formation. There were 3 people standing on the lotus seat, 2 men and a woman. The trio's faces were filled with bewilderment. "Look!" one of the green-clothed men shouted as he pointed at the mountain range in front of him. The scene that was reflected in front of them was exceptionally shocking. The vast platform square that originally existed at the center of the mountain range was no longer there. Only a huge crater that continuously surged with gray waves of air was left. Chaotic and violent energy fluctuations were continuously released from within the crater, and the vortex between heaven and earth caused waves of unrest in the surrounding space. Swish! Then the lotus sped up and swept across the sky, arriving at the top of one of the mountain ranges. Looking down from above, the deep and dark abyss was like a huge mouth, waiting for its prey to come knocking on its door. The ice-cold aura had a bone-piercing chill. It was daunting. Looking at the scene in front of them, the faces of the 3 were somewhat dim. "Looks like the immortal seal tree has been taken by someone else," the young woman said. Although her tone was indifferent, one could hear the disappointment in it. The 2 middle-aged men looked at each other, their eyes suffused with a cold light. The green-clothed man said coldly, "I didn't expect that someone would be a step faster than us. Who exactly is this person?" The young woman shook her head. "The person who's able to solve the illusion of the immortal prying platform at the first possible moment, pass through the Earth-Heaven Four-Kill formation, and sees the immortal seal tree has probably already reached the level of a heavenly inscription master." Heavenly inscription master? Both of their expressions were slightly astonished. "What do we do next?" the other man asked. The green-clothed man's gaze slanted as he pointed at the bottomless abyss below and said, "I think that person shouldn't be much earlier than us. Maybe he's hiding somewhere. Oh, Miss Lon, I'll go down and check if that person is hiding inside." "No, Uncle Co." The young woman stopped him without hesitation and said, "This is the core of the Earth-Heaven Four-Kill formation, and it's also the place where the energy is the most concentrated. Once one falls into the core of the formation, even a heavenly inscription master can forget about escaping. That person is absolutely not ignorant enough to hide below." The green-clothed man's face was slightly pale, and his gaze couldn't help but be filled with fear when he looked at the black abyss again. After pondering for a short while, the young woman's gaze turned slightly cold as she said, "Let's go out now." The 2 of them were slightly stunned. "Don't tell me we're going to give up just like this?" "The person who took the immortal seal tree is surely one of those people outside. As long as we see who's missing from those sects, we'll be able to know who's already solved the illusion from before, and that person is the greatest suspect." "Exactly. Miss Lon is indeed extraordinarily intelligent. We have to hurry back. Don't let that person escape first." Immediately, the 3 of them once again rode on the lotus seat that was like an auspicious cloud and headed back the way they came. Chapter 8:11. Buzz. It was like a dream, real and fake. At this moment, Chu Hen felt as if he had fallen into a quagmire abyss that was difficult to get out of. In the process of falling, all kinds of violent forces were like majestic waves, surging violently like a shocking tsunami. Chu Hen was like a butterfly that was drawn into a hurricane. His whole body was torn apart and attacked by those terrifying forces. Bang! Boom! All kinds of forces tore and collided, causing Chu Hen's whole body to feel as if it had been slashed by a sword. The astral wind waves were like blades. Chu Hen couldn't even open his eyes. He only felt that he was in the center of the whirlpool, constantly enduring the destructive attacks from all directions. The only thing he could do was to release all the true origin energy in his body and do his best to protect all the vital parts of his body. In the storm, the small boat was like a leaf. Bang! After an unknown amount of time, along with the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground, Chu Hen felt that his body had finally stopped. However, The remaining trace of consciousness was especially fuzzy. His brain was spinning. The pain all over his body had long since become numb, and his body no longer felt like it was his own. At this moment, Chu-Hen only had the thought of falling asleep. How many injuries did he suffer? Chu-Hen didn't know. Even opening his eyelids was an extremely difficult thing to do. It was too tiring. This kind of extreme weakness was like being on the verge of death. The seriously damaged true origin energy in his body was like a dried-up riverbed, full of desolation, cracks, showing the aura of decay and death. Chu-Hen just lay there quietly, his left hand pressed under his body, his fingertips touching the soil. It was slightly cold and somewhat loose. The pain stimulated his nerves, and Chu-Hen subconsciously pierced his fingers into the soil. The ice-cold soil actually had a negligible effect on the pain, and immediately after, Chu-Hen pierced his entire palm into the soil. At this moment, Chu-Hen's fingertips actually touched a piece of solid material. It looked like a rock, but it wasn't. Chu-Hen didn't have the time to investigate, and he didn't even have the strength to open his eyes again. The last trace of consciousness was extinguished like a candle in the wind, and he fell into a deep sleep. However, a second before Chu-Hen fainted, he vaguely sensed a stream of energy surging out from the ground like a clear spring and flowing into his body through his fingertips. Silence ruled over everything. The darkness was like a nightmare. Boom! As if he had woken up from a dream, Chu-Hen suddenly opened his eyes. What entered his eyes was an endless darkness. What was going on? Where am I? After a pause of about 3 seconds, the memories from before he fainted came flooding back like a tidal wave. Chu-Hen subconsciously sat up. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Due to the pain, the injuries on his body were still there, and the pain was still there. However, Chu-Hen's eyes lit up. The true origin energy in his body was very abundant, and his mind was clear and energetic. Strange. Chu-Hen knew how half-dead he was before he fainted, and it was impossible for him to recover so well just by sleeping. Could it be? Chu-Hen's mind lit up, and he put his hands into the soil and began to search. Very quickly, Chu-Hen's fingertips came into contact with a piece of hard material. While he was secretly confused, Chu-Hen continuously pulled out the soil on both sides, trying to dig out that thing. But the further he dug, the bigger the thing became. It was like an old vine buried deep in the ground, and the more he dug, the deeper he dug. Not long after, Chu-Hen had dug more than 10 meters, but it was still like he had only found the tip of the iceberg of this mysterious object. Chu-Hen's mind trembled. Could it be? Boom! In an instant, a cloud of holy light dispersed the darkness between heaven and earth like a miracle. Chu-Hen's pupils rapidly shrank from their dilated state, and a dreamlike scene began to appear in front of him. Tens of thousands of rays of light were like a meteor shower in the sky, dazzling and dazzling. A few hundred meters in front of Chu-Hen, an incomparably majestic and huge crystal tree appeared in front of him like a god. This is... Indescribable shock and excitement surged in Chu-Hen's heart. His pupils trembled continuously, and his vision was greatly impacted. The crystal tree was covered with resplendent and complicated runes. The luxuriant treetop was like a cloud, and the branches and leaves were colorful. Every leaf was like the stars in the sky, beautiful and dazzling. Feeling the rich, immortal chi emitted from the huge tree, Chu-Hen was completely shocked. Immortal Spirit Tree. It's actually the second Immortal Spirit Tree. The towering tree in front of him looked almost the same as the Immortal Spirit Tree that Shifeng-Zi had taken, but the difference was that the height of this Immortal Spirit Tree was more than twice the height of the previous one. Chu-Hen was below it, and it was difficult for him to see its full appearance. He felt as if he was placed under the 5 great mountains. With the Immortal Spirit Tree as the center, the ground flickered with dragon-like light vines. The light vines spread wantonly and passed under Chu-Hen's feet like a huge net. Chu-Hen shook his head in amazement and looked at the light vine below him. Very clearly, he had touched a section of the root of this Immortal Spirit Tree. It was really a blessing in disguise. He had carelessly been swept into the eye of the four kills of Earth-Heaven formation, but he had never thought that there would be another immortal spirit tree hidden here. Moreover, in comparison, the immortal spirit tree that Shifeng Zi had taken could not be compared to the one in front of him. The flourishing and resplendent light illuminated Chu Hen's eyes, causing him to be in high spirits. But amidst his pleasant surprise, Chu Hen quickly calmed down. After all, this was definitely not a good place. Immediately, Chu Hen started to inspect the surrounding situation. Around half an hour later, Chu Hen was sure that he had fallen into the eye of the four kills of Earth-Heaven formation. The area they were in now was like an isolated island isolated by violent energy. The surroundings of this island were filled with lava flames, cold streams of ice, death rays, and many other extremely destructive and chaotic energies. In the air, Chu Hen raised his head to look at the space above him. There, ice and fire mixed together, and beams of light that were like sharp arrows crisscrossed each other. Among them, there was even a mysterious devouring hole that was like the eye of space. Seeing this, it wasn't difficult for Chu Hen to understand why he was so heavily injured. It could even be said that he was extremely lucky to have this kind of injury. If it wasn't for the protection of the two great bloodlines, even being torn to pieces was reasonable. If he charged in forcefully, he would surely be courting death. Chu Hen's eyes slightly focused, and he lightly shook his head. His gaze once again returned to the center of the formation that was like an island. The immortal spirit tree stood towering there like a god, displaying the myriad of flourishing stars. Chapter 8:12. The immortal talisman tree flourished. It was as resplendent as a beautiful galaxy. Millions of rays of light danced in the sky. Under the immortal talisman tree, it was as if Chu Hen was facing a divine star that shone brightly, seeming extremely small, falling into the abyss, into the heart of the array. Many terrifying, chaotic energies were like a storm, isolating this area into a lone island. If Chu Hen wanted to escape from here, his only hope was on the immortal talisman tree in front of him. Traces of light energy pulsated in this space. Chu Hen sat under the huge tree. His pair of eyes surged with dense graveness, as well as a few traces of excitement and heat. Very evidently, to be able to unexpectedly find an immortal talisman tree here, it was definitely a great surprise. He did not know what Shifeng Zi would think if he knew of this. Suddenly, Chu Hen clasped his palms together, his 10 fingers intersecting, forming a seal. Activate. Buzz. With a light shout from Chu Hen, the space instantly trembled. A beautiful light immediately appeared on the ground. Intersecting runes and numbers were arranged in an orderly manner around the immortal talisman tree. The bright runes were connected from head to tail, like an arc of lightning, instantly forming a rune array with a diameter of over 100 feet. This was the Great Spirit Gathering Array that Chu Hen had used nearly 3 million high-grade primal crystal stones to set up. Chu Hen was very clear of the difference between him and Shifeng Zi. To directly collect the immortal talisman tree was absolutely difficult to accomplish. Once the Great Spirit Gathering Array was activated, it would continuously provide Chu Hen with a huge amount of energy as support. In this way, the difficulty would also be greatly reduced. Incomparably resplendent rays of light shot into the sky. The vast and majestic golden spirit energy was like a spirit spring water that came from all directions, surging towards Chu Hen's body. In an instant, Chu Hen seemed to be bathed in auspicious clouds and holy light, and his whole body was surrounded by abundant golden light. Then Chu Hen stood up, his eyes filled with unswerving determination. With every step he took, a thin layer of light ripples spread out from his feet. When Chu Hen was less than half a meter away from the immortal symbol tree, he gently raised his left hand. Reiki energy revolved around it, and a wisp of sharp qi appeared out of nowhere. It streaked across his palm at lightning speed, and along with a wound, fresh blood flowed out. Under Chu Hen's control, the blood began to fuse with the Reiki energy. Soon, it condensed into a strange rune that was similar to the word grid. The gorgeous runes turned from gold to red, swaying in the air like an enchanting candle, giving off a strange aura. Then, Chu Hen held the rune in his palm and slowly but steadily imprinted it on the tree trunk. Hum! A layer of water ripples swept out along the surface of the tree trunk. Immediately after, Chu Hen activated the Reiki energy and quickly dispersed it. Streaks of red stripes were released from Chu Hen's palm, coming out from his fingertips. Then, like vines that grew wantonly, they stuck to the bark of the immortal symbol tree and extended in all directions. Wherever the red light pattern went, the tree trunk would blossom with all sorts of strange and complicated runes and numbers. The mysterious and ancient patterns were like the ever-changing secret incantations and were extremely dazzling. Hiss! Then, Chu Hen's right palm was once again cut open by a wisp of qi. Fresh blood flowed out, and the second red grid rune faintly appeared. Just like before, the second rune was once again imprinted on the immortal symbol tree. Hua! A powerful wave of air spread out, and streaks of light patterns rapidly entangled the branches of the immortal symbol tree, like a rope trapping it. The beginning was much smoother than expected. This caused Chu Hen's confidence to increase. But very quickly, the blow came. The red light pattern only extended for a distance of about 100 meters before it slowed down. An invisible resistance prevented Chu Hen's power from continuing to advance. However, Chu Hen was already prepared. Hum. The Great Spirit Gathering Formation began to quickly operate. With Chu Hen as the center, the light on the ground was dazzling, and the glyph array flickered. The high-grade crystal stones that were distributed everywhere flickered like stars. A vast and majestic power that was comparable to a flood immediately poured into Chu Hen's body. Waves of air stacked, and wind and thunder rumbled. The barrier that obstructed Chu Hen was instantly smashed, and the unstoppable Reiki energy crushed down. The red light pattern crazily grew and extended, wrapping around the branches of the immortal symbol tree. Under the support of the Spirit Gathering Formation, Chu Hen's aura greatly increased. The immortal talisman spirit tree also exploded with a brilliant holy light. In the sky above the immortal symbol tree, dense fog surged, and the entire island was filled with boundless spiritual energy. Thousands of rays of light were like illusions. As the power of the runes spread and locked down, Chu Hen's power was quickly being consumed. When the red light pattern reached the 1,000-meter area, Chu Hen's rhythm slowed down once again. However, this was only half of the entire immortal symbol tree. The further it went, the more difficult it was to control. The pressure that Chu Hen was enduring was also constantly increasing and magnifying. In the end, he still underestimated this immortal symbol tree. Shifeng Zi's cultivation far surpassed his, and the two of them could not be compared on the same level. Thinking about it, if he did not take down this immortal symbol tree, he would not be able to leave this place. Moreover, there were still many things waiting for him to do in the ancient desolate heaven domain. Immediately gritting his teeth, Chu Hen once again released all the power in his body, and released an even more powerful Reiki energy. Qi! Hua! The red light pattern was like a vine as it wrapped around the immortal symbol tree. During this process, Chu Hen's blood continuously entered the immortal symbol tree, trying to become one with it. However, the further it went, the slower the red vine extended. When it reached a distance of 1,200 meters, it was as slow as a tortoise. The formless pressure was as heavy as Mount Tai and as heavy as a river. Even though the spirit gathering array was still continuously providing dense spiritual energy, it was like trying to put out a cart of firewood with a cup of water. It was completely insufficient for Chu Hen. Failure seemed to be an inevitable outcome. But just at that moment, a resolute light flashed through the corner of Chu Hen's eyes. I can only do this. Chu Hen's heart moved, and a strand of white light shot out from his sleeve. Within the white light, a simple and unadorned small box opened. Within the box, a 5-colored elixir appeared. Outside the elixir, there was a dense green glow. The green glow floated, forming a strange shadow of a tree. Saint Fusion Elixir, the second treasure he had obtained outside. Shi Fengzi had proposed to Chu Hen to exchange 2 sacred weapons and 100 billion high-grade primordial crystal stones for the elixir. Even though Chu Hen did not think of using it so quickly, in reality, he could no longer find another way. Swish! The sacred fusion elixir drew a faint arc in the air and steadily fell into Chu Hen's mouth. The cool feeling was like a stream of clear spring water flowing into his stomach. After about 5 seconds, there was a muffled rumble, and a monstrous power that was comparable to the eruption of a torrent surged out of Chu Hen's body. Thousands of light beams bloomed from Chu Hen's body. The incomparably powerful Reiki energy immediately filled Chu Hen's Niwen Palace and his entire body. His meridians, blood, flesh, and marrow felt like they were about to explode. Damn it! He had underestimated the power of the sacred fusion elixir. Chu Hen cried out in alarm. The extremely powerful energy caused his blood vessels to bulge and his skin to crack. He could not suppress it at all. In less than 10 seconds, Chu Hen had already become a bloody person. Dense Reiki energy continuously leaked out and splashed everywhere. Even so, Chu Hen's hands did not leave the immortal talisman spirit tree. The power of a small sacred fusion elixir was comparable to a torrent of the sea. With the support of this power, the speed of the red light increased again. Like a horned python, it continued to extend towards the area above the spirit tree. The consumption of the immortal talisman spirit tree caused the pressure the sacred fusion elixir had on Chu Hen to gradually decrease. Whether or not he could take down this immortal talisman spirit tree before the sacred fusion elixir's power was exhausted was still a great challenge for Chu Hen. The outcome was still unknown. Time ticked by. After an unknown amount of time, the entire island flickered with a faint red light. Outside the immortal talisman spirit tree, there seemed to be an incomparably huge red birdcage enveloping it. Such a majestic scene was even more spectacular than when Shi Fengzi had seized the first immortal talisman spirit tree. The sky changed color and the wind and clouds surged. Chu Hen stood under the spirit tree, looking like a boulder statue. The blood on his body had long since dried up. A faint Reiki energy surrounded his arms. It was as faint as a veil, faintly discernible. The spirit-gathering formation that was set up below had long since stopped operating. The ground was filled with the remains of the primal crystal stones that had been used up. Only the last step was left. Difficult, tenacious. It had already been close to 4 hours. The red light had stopped moving and had entered a state of stillness. Fight! Chu Hen shouted in his heart. Following that, the veins on his arms bulged. The last of the Reiki energy in his Niwen Palace was released without reservation. Purple light and black light surged out of Chu Hen's body at the same time. They were like flames that rushed into the sky. The immortal talisman spirit tree released a sacred light. Its branches and leaves swayed, dazzling and dazzling. Following that, Chu Hen clenched his palms and firmly held onto the immortal talisman spirit tree. The force of 1,000 caddies was like thunder. I, Chu Hen, will be your master. The momentum was shocking, shaking the heavens and earth. Rumble. In a split second, the earth quaked and the mountains shook. Chu Hen was like a fiend god holding up a mountain. The power that erupted in an instant was like a landslide or a tsunami. One after another, cracks spread out under his feet. Buzz. The red light intertwined, forming a huge birdcage. With the force of a thunderbolt, it forcefully uprooted the immortal talisman spirit tree that supported the sky. The earth collapsed and the soil was overturned. One after another, sturdy roots, like an awakened horned dragon, sprang out from the soil one after another. Spiderweb-like cracks appeared under Chu Hen's feet. And in Chu Hen's eyes, there was only the immortal talisman spirit tree. Chapter 8:13. Rumble. The instant the immortal talisman tree was uprooted by Chu Hen, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The chaotic and berserk energy directly caused the island below to split into countless crisscrossing deep cracks. Next, it was like a chain reaction. The world spun, the earth shook, and the universe seemed to be turned upside down. The operation of the entire Earth-Heaven 4-kill formation was immediately thrown into chaos. Flames, lava, cold storms, deathly rays, and mysterious devouring holes all collapsed and wantonly mixed together. The intense collision was like the destruction of stars. However, Chu Hen seemed to not notice the things around him. His attention was only on the immortal talisman tree. Rumble. Dense, multicolored light that was as vast as the sea gathered in the sky. Chu Hen leaped up, his clothes fluttered in the wind. His eyes were like stars as he stood proudly in the sky. Both of his eyes revealed the power of the vast ocean. He extended a hand towards the immortal talisman tree in front of him and shouted in a deep voice. Retract. Buzz. Holy light erupted, igniting the entire place. The enormous crystal tree emitted a dazzling luster that flickered between bright and dark. Its solid tree body quickly became illusory and transparent, like an image. Following that, Chu Hen's Niwen palace opened wide, and a bright light was released from between his brows. Buzz, buzz. The red birdcage that trapped the immortal talisman tree rapidly shrank, forming two enormous fence-shaped rune patterns. Immediately after, the immortal talisman tree immediately turned into a ray of light, directly flying towards the space between Chu Hen's brows and instantly submerged within. Boom! Once the immortal talisman tree entered his body, Chu Hen felt as if he was struck by lightning, his body violently trembling. An unprecedented, vast, and majestic aura erupted from Chu Hen's body. Dense golden light constantly swallowed and spat out from Chu Hen's body, as if bathed in holy light and imbued with divine light. At this moment, the unforeseen event at the heart of the Earth-Heaven 4-kill formation directly brought about an unimaginable change to the entire immortal prying platform area. Immortal prying platform. Rumble, thunder rumbled, mountains crumbled, and earth cracked. Imposing platforms collapsed with a loud bang. What's going on? Why are we here? Huh? Didn't you die earlier? Why are you still alive? No, I'm not dead either, right? On the immortal prying platform, numerous figures seemed as if they'd awoken from a dream, and they suddenly woke up from the illusion. Heaven Imperial Court, Heavenly Bamboo Peak, Country of Conquering Cloud, Mount Kunliu, the Liao clan, and everyone else looked at each other in confusion. Looking at the surroundings, some of them were confused, but it didn't take long for them to come to a realization. We've been outside the whole time. We were under an illusion. This is too strange. So it's an illusion. Huh. It seems I'm still alive. The people of the major forces who woke up one after another had different feelings. Some were surprised, and some were happy. For those who had died fighting against the terracotta soldiers, wrought tan armored soldiers, and stone giants, the moment the illusion was broken, it was as if they had walked out of the nightmare of death and obtained a new life. His excitement was self-evident. However, before the crowd had much time to recover from their shock, a shocking change akin to the end of the world followed closely behind. Rumble. The heavens fell and the earth cracked. Thunderclouds raged. The 4 energy crystal pillars on the immortal prying platform emitted a dazzling radiance that could seize the heavens and the earth. Immediately after, the 4 huge energy light pillars were covered in cracks. Then, like the collapsing pillars of the sky, they broke inch by inch and fell to the ground. F*CK. Are we still in the illusion? Have we not gotten over it yet? I don't know. Why don't you try dying again? Try your grandpa. Why don't you try? Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and retreat. In an instant, the entire immortal prying platform fell into chaos. Heaven Imperial Court's Xiao Meng, Heavenly Bamboo Peak's Lin Yuman, Liao Clan's Li Wu, and Mount Kunliu's Lung Lingyan, Shan Jun, and the others led the crowd to retreat. Rumble, clang, thunder surged from the 9 heavens, and the nebulous storm was like a divine punishment. The space trembled uneasily, and the heaven and earth seemed to be about to leave the body. The continuous violent tremors set off all kinds of terrifying shockwaves that could topple mountains and overturn seas. With the immortal prying platform as the center, flames soared into the sky, ice and snow flew together, and there were even extremely penetrating death rays that swept out. Mountain after mountain was crushed, and the layers of the platform collapsed. The incomparably powerful astral wind waves constantly injured the crowd. The torrent of wind was like a ferocious beast opening its bloody mouth. In an instant, miserable screams rang out, and the crowd only cared about running for their lives. The soaring energy filled the heaven and earth, and the wind swept away the clouds. In just a few blinks of an eye, the area within a 10,000-meter radius of the immortal prying platform was directly turned into ruins. Moreover, the turbulence was still ongoing. The killing heavens, earth for death formation actually collapsed. How strange. On the peak of a mountain far away, three figures looked at the unforeseen event in front of them, and their eyes were filled with surprise. Perhaps it has something to do with the loss of the immortal talisman spirit tree. The young woman standing in front said, thoughtfully, that immortal talisman spirit tree is very likely to be used to suppress the killing heavens earth for death formation. Once the immortal talisman spirit tree is lost, the balance of the formation's power will be broken, and all the runes on the immortal prying platform will collapse. The two middle-aged men behind her nodded. Miss Lon, what should we do next? Did you guys find out who had already broken the illusion before this? The two middle-aged men looked at each other, and one of them said, in reply to Miss Lon, we have indeed found someone who is not in his group. Oh. Rocks collapsed, and the mountains were destroyed. In the blink of an eye, the immortal prying platform was reduced to a land filled with dust and smoke. Many people who were fleeing in all directions were hit by the chaotic energy of the runes, and their flesh and blood splattered in all directions. Not even their bones were left. The unforeseen event had come so unexpectedly. The illusion from before had caused the people who came here this time to return empty-handed. That was close. This place is really King strange. In the Mount Kunliu team, Su Lang patted his chest with a slightly pale face, and his heart palpitated. I didn't do anything here, but I had a dream. Danjun also smiled helplessly. Wait a minute, where's Chu Hen? At this moment, Chi Tong could not help but exclaim loudly. Everyone's heart could not help but tremble. Indeed, everyone in the Mount Kunliu team was here, except for Chu Hen. Are we still in the illusion? A Mount Kunliu disciple asked doubtfully. Previously, in the illusion, Chu Hen had fought against Xiao Mang, Li Wu, and Ying Sha alone. In the end, he was devoured and killed by Ying Sha's killer move Hell Yellow Spring Marsh. In the illusion, Chu Hen had already met with a disaster. That's not possible. Dan Zhun's eyes narrowed, and she said in a low voice, those who died in the illusion have all been resurrected. This is definitely the real world. The reason why an illusion was because it was an illusion created by one's willpower. Once one's willpower was firm, it would be very difficult for an illusion to have too much of an effect on one's willpower. Therefore, this was the real world, and there was no need to doubt it. However, where did Chu Hen go? Why was he missing? What should they do next? Everyone looked at Lung Lingyan with questioning gazes. However, Lung Lingyan gave a very surprising answer. Chapter 814. Rumble. The realm of the immortal prying platform was dark. The world was spinning, and the sky was shaking. In just a blink of an eye, the entire immortal prying platform was reduced to ruins by the violent energy that was comparable to a landslide or tsunami. Dust filled the air, and the wind blew away the clouds. People from all directions fled for their lives. Those who were severely injured screamed in pain. Let's leave this place first. Just when everyone in Mount Kunliu was puzzled by Chu Hen's disappearance, Lung Lingyan said something that surprised everyone with a resolute tone. What about Chu Hen? Are we going to ignore him? A Mount Kunliu's disciple asked. Lung Lingyan narrowed her eyes and said in a deep voice, I think he'll find us, but stop talking. Let's leave immediately." Lung Lingyan's tone was unquestionable. Everyone's expression changed slightly when they sensed her majestic aura. They no longer hesitated and quickly left with Lung Lingyan. However, just as she rose into the air, a cold and eerie shadow blade suddenly descended from the sky. It was like a bolt of lightning that cut off Lung Lingyan's path. Lung Lingyan's expression changed slightly. She immediately stopped and dodged. Rumble. The peerlessly powerful shadow blade slashed diagonally at a ruined mountain range below, instantly splitting it into two from the middle. "Everyone, where are you going?" Following that, a cold voice sounded. Subsequently, the sky in front of Lung Lingyan distorted. Along with the floating gray afterimage, a cold and eerie figure appeared. His cold eyes were like a tiger looking at a flock of sheep. The eerie smile on his face was full of mockery. The people from Mount Kuan-Lu frowned. Shanjin took a step forward and said sternly, "Humph. Ingsha, I'm afraid you can't afford to offend our Mount Kuan-Lu with your ability. If you don't want to be hunted down by our sect in the future, you'd better scram." As the trump card assassin of the Eastern Victory State, his name was indeed terrifying. However, in terms of background, Ingsha could not withstand Mount Kuan-Lu's wrath at all. However, a disdainful laugh followed. "Ha ha ha ha. Is Mount Kumliu that amazing?" In the next instant, Xiao Mang led the Heaven Unified Dynasties group from the south. Xiao Mang held the holy, cleaving axe in his hand. His clothes fluttered in the wind, giving him an extraordinary appearance. Bang! At the same time, a mountain peak in the north collapsed and exploded. 3 sturdy giants rushed over amidst the flying rocks. The surging evil aura was like a giant devil from hell blocking the way. "With my Liao clan here, don't even think about leaving Mount Kuan-Lu alive today." In front of him was the Shadow Killer, on the left was the Heaven Unified Dynasty, and on the right was the Fong clan giant. In an instant, the people of Mount Kumliu once again fell into a 3-way siege. Lung Lingyan's brows furrowed in a solemn manner. This was exactly what he was worried about. He wanted to take advantage of the chaos to escape, but he didn't expect the enemy to be so fast. "Where's that bastard? Where did he hide it?" The Liao clan's strength shaman shouted fiercely. Ingsha, Xiao Mang, and the others were surprised to find that Chu Hen was the only one missing from Mount Kumliu's group. They couldn't help but feel confused. "He's already gone," Lung Lingyan replied calmly without batting an eyelid. "Southwest. If you chase after him now, you might be able to catch up." Shan Jun, Su Lang, and the others were stunned. They didn't know why Lung Lingyan would say this. However, after thinking about it calmly, they quickly understood her intentions. "Oh, he would abandon you guys and escape by himself?" Xiao Mang held his axe with one hand and crossed his arms in front of him. Lung Lingyan raised her beautiful eyes slightly and said nonchalantly, "When life is at stake, people are selfish. He was the one who took away the draining god spear and killed your Liao clan's companions. I think these things have nothing to do with us." Hearing Lung Lingyan trying her best to distance herself from Chu Hen, the surrounding people couldn't help but feel surprised. "Ha ha." However, Xiao Meng laughed heartily. "I've long heard that Lung Lingyan from Mount Kumliu's Void Temple is extraordinarily intelligent. You're calm even if Mount Tai collapses before you. Now that I've seen you, the rumors are indeed true. Unfortunately, I, Xiao Meng, am not a 3-year-old child. You can't fool me." Lung Lingyan smiled indifferently. "It's up to you whether you believe me or not. The more time you waste here, the further he'll run." "Humph. I almost believed your nonsense." Swoosh. At this moment, the people from Sky Bamboo Peak and Country of Conquering Cloud arrived. "Sir Xiao Meng, can you let them go for Lin Yuman's sake?" Her soft voice was like rain and silk. It was a little surprising that Sky Bamboo Peak would intervene at this time. Xiao Meng snorted coldly and replied frivolously, "What if I say no?" Before Lin Yuman could reply, Yun He, who was next to her, said in a low voice, "Junior Sister Lin, this matter involves the conflict between the sections. It's best for Sky Bamboo Peak not to intervene, but Mount Kunliu helped us before." The one who spoke was Chun Ro from Country of Conquering Cloud. Oomph. How can a small favor be compared to a major sect matter? Yuni looked at her coldly and shouted at Chun Ro to back off. With the current situation, even if we lend a hand, it's useless. Why seek trouble for ourselves? From the beginning, he had disliked Chu Hen. He also held a grudge against Mount Kunliu. It was already good enough that he did not hit them when they were down. Moreover, the treasure of Country of Conquering Cloud, the Heaven's Blade, was still with Chu Hen. Due to her relationship with Lung Ling Yan, Lin Yuman did not directly ask Chu Hen for the Heaven's Blade. However, if Chu Hen was in danger and was killed by others, she could take back the Heaven's Blade without any worries. Therefore, regardless of the reason, Sky Bamboo Peak did not need to win the championship. Xiao Meng sneered coldly. Junior sister Lin, do what you want to do. I don't have time to waste here. Lin Yuman clenched her hands into fists. A hint of coldness flashed across her eyes. At this moment, a calm voice dispelled Lin Yuman's hostility. I don't need your help, huh? Everyone was stunned. The person who said this was none other than Lung Lingyan herself. The other party's eyes were as clear as water. Not a single ripple could be seen as she calmly said such a sentence. Lin Yuman and the people from the Heavenly Bamboo Peak were even more astonished. One should know that Lung Lingyan was facing 3 powerful opponents who were at the 6th level of the Earth Profound Realm. Only with the help of the Heavenly Bamboo Peak could they have a chance of survival. Otherwise, they would be instantly annihilated. You? Lin Yuman frowned. Do you still want face at this time? Lung Lingyan shook her head. I've never been one to care about face. Plus, I've never lost to you. Buzz. As soon as she finished speaking, a shapeless wave of air spread out from Lung Lingyan's body. Between heaven and earth, a faint, obscure rhythm was formed. How interesting. In the sky, Ingshaw's lips curled into a disdainful smile. Then, his body moved and swept towards Lung Lingyan like a phantom. Leave this woman to me. Xiao Meng and Li Wu responded with a cold smile. They had no intention of making the first move. With Ingshaw's strength, it was more than enough to deal with Lung Lingyan. Moreover, Xiao Meng did not believe that Chu Hen had already left this place. He must be hiding somewhere. As long as they subdued and killed all the people from Mount Kunliu, Chu Hen would definitely not be able to hide and would definitely show himself. Whoosh! Like a shadow, like a ghost, Ingsha turned into a blurry gray shadow and appeared in front of Lung Lingyan. To be honest, I rarely kill women, especially these beautiful women. Hiss! Accompanied by the sound of air being cut through, a sharp crystal pillar flew out from the gray fog. The cold blade went straight for Lung Lingyan's heart. Ingsha's aura was peerless, but Lung Lingyan's body did not have the slightest fluctuation of primordial energy. Facing the opponent's powerful attack, Lung Lingyan stretched out her jade-like palm. More than a dozen white air waves gathered in her palm and rotated and intertwined. Bang! Her palm fell and hit the tip of the crystal pillar. Everyone thought that with Ingshaw's strength, this attack would probably be able to penetrate Lung Lingyan's palm. However, this did not happen. All they saw was a burst of light, and the crystal pillar's sharp spear actually broke into pieces. Dual void force. Lung Lingyan let out a soft cry. In the next instant, a second wave of astonishing palm force followed closely behind. A wave of power that was like an undercurrent in the deep sea erupted from a single point and landed firmly on the misty shadow that Shadow Killer had transformed into. Bang! The space trembled violently. Thousands of light shadows flew everywhere. The fog was like a shattered water ball, bursting into countless light spots. Not good. Not only did the people from Mount Kunliu not feel excited when they shattered the fog formed by Ingsha with a single palm, they turned pale with fright. Senior sister Lingyan, retreat quickly. Hey, it's too late. A cold voice reverberated from all directions. Buzz! As soon as Lung Lingyan finished speaking, the trembling space around her began to distort in a dreamlike manner. In the next second, strange crystal walls appeared out of thin air around her. The mirror-like walls were so bright that one could see one's reflection. They were dozens of meters tall and more than 10 meters wide. Front, back, left, right, up and down, the countless ice crystal mirror walls immediately transformed into a huge rhombus-shaped space. It was dazzling and radiant, yet it hid infinite killing intent. Ice Mirror Devil Palace. This was the ultimate skill that Sha was famous for. It was rumored that in the entire Eastern Victory State, thousands of Earth Profound stage powerhouses had died in this Ice Mirror Devil Palace. The scene that appeared on Chu Hen's body in the illusion immediately fell on Lung Lingyan's body. Welcome to the Ice Mirror Devil Palace, inside the rhombus-shaped space. Lung Lingyan seemed to be in a palace of mirrors. In different figures, it continuously appeared on the mirrors around her. Countless Sha appeared in the mirrors, as though they were about to sentence Lung Lingyan to death. Chapter 8:15. It's a pity. This time, it's not an illusion. A cold voice, like the pronouncement of the Grim Reaper, came from every mirror in all directions. Ice Mirror Demonic Palace. The huge rhombus-shaped space trapped Lung Lingyan inside like a cage that was difficult to break free from. The crowd above the immortal viewing platform could imagine Lung Lingyan's panicked expression. Damn it! Dan Zhun cursed angrily. Without saying another word, he led the people of Mount Kunliu to rush over to provide support. Bastard, if you dare to touch a single hair on Senior Sister Lingyan's head, Mount Kunliu will hunt you down. Hell, what a big tone! Shortly after, the two Liao clan experts who had transformed into giants soared into the sky along with the crushed mountain below, directly blocking the path of Danjin's group. If you want to pass, you'll have to get through us first. Although these two Fong clan experts were not as strong as Strength Wu, they had reached the 5th level of the Earth Profound Realm. The aura they emitted was as unshakable as a mountain. Dan Zhun and the rest could not help but be enraged, however. At this moment, a strange and enormous aura suddenly spread in all directions. Everyone present could not help but be shocked. Buzz, there seemed to be the sound of wind and waves. Then, the sky turned dark and the earth lost its color. An indescribable silence enveloped the entire area. Silence. Indescribable silence. All things in the surroundings, including the mountains, rivers, and ruins, seemed to have turned into nothingness, revealing a dreamy, chaotic state. In an instant, everyone present felt as if they had entered the boundless and mysterious galaxy of the universe. Even the true inner force in their bodies seemed to be suppressed by an invisible force. What's going on? Just as everyone was confused, a cold female voice came from the Ice Mirror Demonic Palace. This is not an illusion. It's a pity for you. Lung Lingyan's voice was not the least bit panicked. Instead, it was filled with indifference. What? Everyone was shocked. At the same time, a bad premonition surged in the hearts of Xiaomeng, Strength Wu, and the rest. Boom! In the next moment, the soft sound of cyclones that were as soft as feathers caused the space around them to tremble. Soon after, under the astonished gazes of everyone present, a vast and mighty layer of dense, white mist spread out like a nebula vortex, with the Ice Mirror Demonic Palace as the center, sweeping out in all directions. Heavenly Void Seal. World Reversal. Her cold and dignified voice caused everyone's hearts to tremble. Following that, a white palm pillar burst out from Lung Lingyan's palms. The palm's momentum was still calm, without the slightest energy fluctuation. However, its speed was like a bolt of lightning. Bang! The white palm pillar directly smashed into the luxurious ice mirror in front of it. Upon contact, the enormous ice mirror was instantly penetrated and shattered into countless fragments. The Ice Mirror Demonic Palace was forcefully pierced through, creating a huge hole. The spectacular scene was like a divine beam piercing through the stars. After piercing through the ice mirror, the white palm shot straight up, and its speed increased by several times. It was like a sharp sword piercing through the air, sweeping up an incomparably cold energy as it fiercely charged at an area about 100 meters away from the Ice Mirror Demonic Palace. Bang! Along with a circle of wantonly ripples, The white palm pillar leaped into the sky. However, the area within 100 meters was splattered with blood and flesh flying everywhere. What? Everyone present had their eyes wide open, and their faces were filled with astonishment. Buzz's space slightly fluctuated and distorted, and a figure with a face filled with endless fear and disbelief appeared. Shah's face no longer had the playful expression from before. Instead, it was replaced by paleness and panic. His eyes widened as he lowered his head to look at the bloody hole in his chest. The shattered bones and internal organs were all destroyed. It was a ghastly sight, and no one dared to look at it directly. How is this possible? Boom! The ice mirror shattered, and the tens of thousands of crystal pillars exploded into fragments. Lung Lingyan's long hair fluttered in the wind, and her robe was as white as snow. In my void space, your invisibility spell is useless, Li Wuyo said coldly. Void space? The eyes of everyone from Mount Kunliu lit up. I really didn't expect Senior Sister Lingyan to have cultivated the Void Heavenly Seal technique to the last level. This void space is really powerful. That's right, the last level of the void space can form its own independent barrier. Within this range, not only will one's strength increase greatly, but even the slightest movement in the surroundings will be visible to one's eyes. Void space. Reversed realm slash. The sudden reversal caused a huge wave in everyone's heart. After a brief moment of silence, Shadow Killer's life force was rapidly exhausted. His broken internal organs fell from his chest, and he fell powerlessly from the sky, like a bird with broken wings. He smashed into the ground, his body smashed to pieces. At this moment, everyone looked at Lung Lingyan differently after killing Ying Sha, who had a cultivation base of level 6 Earth Profound stage, with a single move. So it turned out that the truly powerful were all so low-key. Lin Yuman from Sky Bamboo Peak frowned slightly. Her eyes were filled with surprise. So many years had passed, and she thought she would definitely defeat Lung Lingyan from Mount Kunliu. She did not expect Lung Lingyan's cultivation base to be so strong. It was just like what the other party had said. She had never lost to him. Xiao Meng from Heaven Dynasty's face had already turned gloomy. The corner of his mouth drew back, revealing a sinister smile. This is really unexpected. You really hit it well. However, Xiao Meng's voice paused. Then 2 rays of ruthless light shot out from his eyes. Today, all of you will still have to stay here. Attack. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Meng held the Saint cutting axe in his hand and rushed towards Lung Lingyan with the power to split the sky. Xian Gu, Bai Nian, and the others from Heaven Dynasty followed closely behind. They all drew their swords and rushed towards the people from Mount Kunliu. The Fong Clan Strength Shaman sneered. I'm sorry for underestimating you before. The giant's body rushed over. His ice-cold sharp claws covered the sky and ground, crushing towards Lung Lingyan. The 2 experts of level 6 Earth Profound Realm attacked together. The pressure on Lung Lingyan immediately multiplied. Fortunately, she had killed Ying Sha first. Otherwise, it would have been incomparably troublesome. However, in terms of overall strength, the Heaven Dynasty and the Fong Clan were still stronger than Mount Kunliu. Defeat was the inevitable outcome. At this moment, in an abyss covered by darkness and ruins, a young figure floated in midair. His eyes were closed, and a gauze-like golden light pattern flowed around his body. His aura fluctuated between strong and weak, restless and calm at times. It was very mysterious. Inside Chu Hen's Niwen Palace. Compared to before, Chu Hen's Niwen Palace had already undergone a tremendous change. The space continued to expand, and the chaotic area around him became clear at a speed visible to the naked eye. Verdant grass grew on the originally barren land. Rivers flowed, and it was full of vitality. The biggest change was none other than the street tree in the centermost area. At this moment, this street tree no longer had a shadow of the past. It was as if it had been reborn. From the leaves to the trunk, everything was bright and dazzling, as if it was made of crystal. Thousands of mysterious talisman inscriptions covered it like ancient talisman numbers. It was a deluge of colorful flowers. Rich Reiki energy filled the entire Niwen Palace. Chuhen's strength was increasing at an extremely fast rate. When his street tree and the immortal talisman spirit tree merged into one, Chuhen's attainments in the art of talisman quietly entered the ranks of Earth Pattern Masters. At this moment, Chuhen truly felt the mystical power of the immortal talisman spirit tree. Just the strength of the Reiki energy that was derived from it was like heaven and earth. Relying on the supreme mystery of the immortal talisman spirit tree, it would not be difficult for him to surpass Earth Pattern Master and enter the realm of Heavenly Pattern Master in the future. Buzz buzz. Layers of light and shadow revolved around Chuhen's body. There was not a single sound in the silent space. At this moment, the surrounding power rapidly converged into Chuhen's body. The chaotic aura also calmed down. In the next second, Chuhen's eyes suddenly opened. Chapter 816. Boom! The immortal prying platform, which had already been reduced to ruins, once again erupted into a chaotic battle. The Heaven Unified Dynasty and Mount Kunliu immediately drew their swords and fought without saying a word. The Heaven Unified Dynasty's overall strength was already strong, and with the addition of the Liao clan's experts, Mount Kunliu's side quickly fell into a disadvantageous position. Blades flashed, and swords flashed, and shockwaves soared into the sky. All kinds of powerful martial arts and secret techniques clashed, causing explosions in the sky and shaking the space in all directions. The sky darkened, and rubble flew everywhere. The chaotic rainbow shadows were gorgeous and dazzling, as if the light-shaking realm was wreaking havoc. Ha! Lung Lingyan, I'm sorry for underestimating you, Xiao Meng sneered coldly. The holy slicing axe in his hand shone with a cold golden light. He waved his hand, and an axe shadow pierced through the sky, striking towards Lung Lingyan. Lung Lingyan's clear eyes narrowed slightly. Her slender fingers clasped together as she shouted coldly. Void Destruction Palm. Boom! Waves of wind rose and surged, and the area above Lung Lingyan suddenly turned into a vast and endless starry universe. Then, along with the distorted space, a giant palm descended from the sky. It did not cause a single ripple, and it fell silently, although there was not the slightest energy fluctuation at the moment when the two forces collided. There was an explosion. The giant palm actually forcefully smashed the incoming axe shadow into smithereens. Then, the attack of the palm did not decrease, and it whistled towards Xiao Meng again. Oomph. A trace of disdain flashed across Xiao Meng's eyes, and he struck out with two axe shadows. The two axe shadows, one in front and one behind, moved like lightning. They flashed in the void, and two crescent shadows flashed, directly smashing the palm shadow into pieces. The intense collision of energy was like a surging wave, and it exploded in the sky. Roar! At the same time, a ferocious, beast-like roar came from behind Lung Lingyan. The giant-like strength sorcerer threw a punch with the force of Mount Tai, and it was incomparably domineering. The violent energy that covered his arm was like a rising flame, and the scorching heat wave crushed down. Lung Lingyan's pretty face changed slightly, and she hurriedly retreated. As she retreated, her hands formed a lotus seal. Buzz! Along with the slight rhythmic movement of the air, a ripple-like barrier immediately appeared in front of her. Bang! In the next second, Strength Shaman's powerful and heavy fist fiercely smashed onto the screen, causing flames to splatter everywhere and golden light to burst forth. The barrier violently distorted and shook. Following that, the middle of the barrier was pierced, creating a large hole. The powerful shockwave from the aftershock surged toward Lung Lingyan, causing her body to tremble slightly as a trickle of blood trickled down the corner of her mouth. Senior Sister Lingyan. Everyone on Mount Kun Lu turned pale with fright. To Lung Lingyan, Dealing with two experts at the 6th level of the Earth Profound Realm at the same time was indeed somewhat difficult. Even so, no one from Mount Kunliu's side was able to free themselves to assist. Enraged, the eyes of the Mount Kunliu disciples turned red, and each and every one of them erupted with an intense, evil aura. "I'll fight you to the death." A disciple with a fiery temper had bloodshot eyes. He turned into a dozen blurry shadows in the air, and as swift as a cheetah, he charged to the left side of one of the Fong clan's giants. He raised his long sword high and thrust it at the enemy's throat in a head-on manner. However, the Fong clan's expert had a disdainful expression on his face. He suddenly turned around and opened his abyss-like mouth, releasing a powerful devouring force. "Die in my stomach." Rumble, a whirlpool black hole, suddenly appeared in his mouth. The Mount Kunliu disciple was caught off guard and was directly sucked into it. Along with a shrill shriek, blood splattered everywhere, filling the gaps between the Fong clan's man's teeth. Cannibalism. Cannibalism for real. This shocking scene caused a chill to run down the spines of everyone in the room. At the same time, everyone felt sorry for the fate of the people from Mount Kunli be *starred. Shanjun's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, and her eyes were about to spit fire. "I'll kill you." Screech, along with a loud falcon's cry. Shanjun shot out like an aurora. Golden light patterns revolved around her body and instantly formed a pair of light wings on both sides of her body. The sound of the air being sliced apart was extremely ear-piercing. Shanjun was like a wing blade that tore through the air, leaving a trail of red flames in the air as she ruthlessly charged at the man-eating Fong clansman. Boom! Like a meteor crashing into a mountain. The light that soared into the sky bloomed like a misty rain. A bloody wound that was so deep that the bone could be seen quickly split open on the Fong clansman's chest, extending for dozens of meters. Shanjun was also sent flying with a fierce look in her eyes. If it was an ordinary person, this attack would have been fatal. However, what made everyone's hearts tremble was the Fong clansman actually threw his head back and laughed maniacally. "Ha ha ha! Idiot, you've underestimated our Fong clan's holy bloodline. I'll let you know what it means to be a descendant of the Saint God." "What?" Dan Zhun's pupils constricted. In the next instant, she saw the other party's blood and chi rising into the sky, and the fatal wound on his body was actually healing at a rapid pace. The speed at which his vitality was recovering was truly frightening. "Hey, you foolish mortal, you should just obediently stay in the dirt." Another coarse voice filled with ridicule came from behind. Shanjun was alarmed, and she cursed inwardly. Before she could react, a black shadow shrouded her head. Bang! A sturdy and ice-cold giant hand ruthlessly smashed into Shanjun's body like a millstone. The protective true essence around her body immediately shattered, and the wings of light on both sides were directly crushed. Shanjun's body shook, and her internal organs shifted. Along with a large mouthful of blood, she directly fell from the sky, smashing into the rubble below. Boom! A surging shockwave swept across the ground. Inside the crater, Shanjun's body was covered in blood, and she was in a sorry state, unable to move. Can't even withstand a single blow. The other Fong clan expert who attacked from behind sneered disdainfully. Boom! Boom! At the same time, one after another, the disciples of Mount Kunliu were besieged by the experts of the Heaven Dynasty. This is your fate for opposing our Heaven-connecting dynasty. A mediocre sect can't stand up to the Grand Hall after all. Let's bury them in the ruins. Seeing that the people of Mount Kunliu had already fallen into a certain death situation, the people from the country of Yu revealed anxious expressions. After all, Mount Kunliu had helped them in the Blood Tree Forest. However, the country of Yu did not have much of say here in Sky Bamboo Peak. Looks like they won't be able to hold on for long. Yunhee crossed his arms in front of him and rubbed his chin with one hand, a gloating expression on his face. Lin Yuman, who was in front of him, coldly said, "You guys leave first." The people of Sky Bamboo Peak were startled. Junior sister Lin, You want to know about Mount Kunliu? Yin he asked in a low voice. I don't care about Mount Kunliu's matters, but Lung Lingyan's life and death is my personal matter. Junior Sister Lin, you have to think carefully. If anything goes wrong, you know the consequences. It's none of your business. Lin Yumin immediately left the people of Sky Bamboo Peak and flew toward Lung Lingyan's battle. She stared at the slender figure that was on the verge of collapsing under the joint attack of Li Wu and Xiao Mei. She could not help but recall the scene of the two of them fighting for the only spot to enter Sky Bamboo Peak. Lung Lingyan, if I find out that you lost to me on purpose back then, I definitely won't forgive you. Heh, looks like another troublemaker has arrived. Xiao Mei glanced at Lin Yumin from the corner of his eyes. A cruel sneer appeared on his face. I'll leave this to you. Settle it as soon as possible. Li Wu sneered. I'll count to 10 at most. Let's wait and see. Xiao Mei raised his eyebrows. Then he turned around and charged toward Lin Yumin with a majestic force that was like a monstrous wave. Junior Sister Lin, it's not good to be too troublesome. Buzz. As he spoke, Xiao Mei raised his holy axe high. Brilliant vines of light shot out from his arms and covered the holy axe. Tens of thousands of light shadows erupted. The sky lost its color and the space trembled. It was as if Xiao Mei was holding a heaven-splitting divine metal in his hands. All the energy in the world was contained in it. Feeling the aura released by Xiao Mei, Lin Yumin's brows were slightly solemn. Then, she spread her arms and flicked her 10 fingers. Along with the rising true origin energy, the airflow in the world rose and fell like a tide. Xiao Mei, don't be too ruthless. I don't need you to teach me what to do. A trace of madness flashed in Xiao Mei's eyes. The veins on his arms bulged as if he was holding something heavy. Let me see the unique skill of your Sky Bamboo Peak. 9God/Buzz. In an instant, a frightening axe shadow that spanned 1,000 meters swept towards Lin Yumin with the power of thunder. It was like a crescent moon, crashing into the heavenly river. Wherever it passed, the space would continuously distort. At the same time, Lin Yumin's aura rose like a wave. 1,000 bamboo shield. Swish, swish, swish. The crushed stones of the mountains below split open. Thousands of huge jade bamboos rose like bamboo shoots after the rain. They lined up in a row and turned into a 1,000-jong-tall bamboo wall. The emerald green bamboo wall was like a waterfall that blocked in front of Lin Yumin. Bang! The thunderous axe shadow directly hit the bamboo wall. In an instant, the violent impact was comparable to a landslide and a tsunami. All kinds of violent energy soared into the sky. Rumble! The earth quaked and the mountains shook. Crushed stones danced in the air. Pieces of the bamboo wall exploded in all directions. The people who gathered to watch the battle from afar all felt the heat wave hit their faces and their blood churned. As expected of the people from Sky Bamboo Peak and Heaven Imperial Dynasty. This strength, TSK. So what? Even if Lin Yumin makes a move, Kunliu Mountain won't be able to escape the fate of destruction. Lung Lingyan can't hold on any longer. Chapter 817. Boom! Endless violent chi shook the heavens and earth, comparable to tsunamis and landslides. The entire ruins of the immortal prying platform became a torrential storm. The first confrontation between Heaven Dynasty's Xiao Mei and Heavenly Bamboo Peak's Lin Yumin had already caused the sky to darken. The two genius disciples from the top 10 forces of the victorious Eastern State displayed their extraordinary demeanor. What should we do? We need to go and help Senior Sister Lin, a young disciple from Heavenly Bamboo Peak said. However, he stretched out his hand to stop the people behind him. He glanced at them from the corner of his eyes and coldly laughed. There's no need. Mount Kunliu has already fallen into a situation of certain death. Even if all of us act together, we won't be able to save them. But Senior Sister Lin, there's no need to worry. He had a contented expression on his face as he said leisurely, once this group of people from Mount Kunliu is eliminated, she will naturally return. Although Yuni's cultivation was not as strong as Lin Yumin, He entered Heavenly Bamboo Peak a year earlier than her and was more experienced than Lin Yumin. Yet he still had a lot of authority. Seeing that, the other disciples of Heavenly Bamboo Peak did not say anything else. Bang! Bang! Wave after wave of powerful shock waves exploded in the air. One by one, Mount Kunliu's disciples suffered casualties under the fierce attacks of the Heaven Dynasty and the Liao clan. Screams were unceasing, filled with hatred and unwillingness. Scram! Su Lang knocked away the enemy in front of him with a sword. His eyes were bloodshot and the veins on his forehead bulged. He shouted, "Senior Sister Ling Yan, don't worry about us. Leave this place quickly." "That's right, Senior Sister Ling Yan, leave quickly. You must find Junior Brother, Chu Hen." A cornered beast fight, certain defeat. The people of Mount Kunliu had already realized this. On the other side, Lung Lingyan was already injured. Her originally pretty face was now slightly pale. "You can't leave, I swear." Li Wu's cold sneer was like a demon's mockery. His huge body immediately exploded with a scarlet light that soared into the sky. The giant hand that was as sharp as a wolf's claw swept toward Lung Lingyan with the force of a mountain. Lung Lingyan raised her beautiful eyes and could clearly see the palm lines on the other party's palm. Between the palm lines, powerful energy was flowing freely. The devil's hand, palm power splitting the heavens. Boom! The violent shockwave was comparable to a thunderclap, and when the giant palm fell, a brilliant golden light erupted from Lung Lingyan's body. However, in just an instant, her aura was rapidly suppressed. The aurora vanished, and a vast mass of light and shadow swept out in all directions, setting off waves of air and violent tides. Then, a slender and soft figure flew out from within, retreating in extremely fast speed. Red blood flowed out of Lung Lingyan's mouth, and her pale face turned crimson due to the churning blood essence in her body. At the same time, the man from the Fong clan who had just devoured a Mount Kunliu disciple suddenly let out a sinister laugh. "Died in my stomach. Beauty, what?" Everyone present turned pale with fright. The few people from Mount Kunliu were so furious that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. "Be starred, how dare you? I will definitely tear you into pieces." The man from the Fong clan laughed even more ferociously and proudly. He opened his giant mouth, and between the gaps of his teeth were scarlet pieces, like the bloody mouth of a ferocious beast. Buzz, buzz. An extremely restless energy fluctuation appeared at the side of his mouth, and along with the distorted space, a huge suction force erupted. In an instant, Lung Lingyan was like a butterfly that was about to be sucked into a vortex wormhole, and what awaited her was a sharp guillotine. A faint sense of helplessness appeared in her eyes. The injuries in her body had already rendered her defenseless. However, for some reason, there was no fear or panic on her face, even if the Grim Reaper was standing behind her. On the other hand, the people from Mount Kunliu were extremely furious, and they could not wait to execute these few people from the Fong clan. "It's over." A cruel smile appeared on the faces of Xiao Meng, Li Wu, and the others. Lin Yumin looked nervous, but she was too far away to do anything. She could only watch as Lin Yumin fell into the mouth of the man from the Fong clan. The scene of a rain of blood was about to appear. The elegant and refined figure was about to disappear. Rumble. Suddenly, in the ruins behind the immortal prying platform, billions of pieces of rubble were suddenly lifted up, and an extremely violent and piercingly cold murderous aura was comparable to the instantaneous eruption of a volcano. The mountains collapsed, the earth cracked, and the sky lost its color. A huge pit immediately appeared on the ground. Everyone's heart trembled at his words. Swoosh! In the next instant, a ray of saber light directly burst out from the ruins on the ground. The silver saber shadow tore through the air like a glimpse of thousands of years of history and attacked in the direction of Lung Lingyan at the speed of light. Hiss! The sound of the cold saber light cutting through the sky hurt everyone's eardrums. What followed was a scene of a rain of blood. Everyone's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. This saber had forcibly cut through the head of the man from the Fawn clan, and half of his head had actually been chopped off. There was no scream, but everyone seemed to hear a crazy scream that came from the soul. Red and white liquid danced in the air. The giant of the Fawn clan who had lost half of his head was extremely terrifying, but the powerful bloodline of the Fawn clan prevented him from dying immediately. The power of swallowing in his bloody mouth rapidly weakened, and a low murmur came from his throat, rumble. Immediately after, the mountains and rivers shook, and the airwaves were monstrous. A silver shadow cut through the sky, and everyone caught a familiar aura. Lung Lingyan's clear eyes were filled with surprise. She saw the shadow reach her side in an instant, and then a saber light with the power to split open the sky. Bang! The giant body of the man from the Fawn clan, who had half of his head cut off, was once again cut into two from the middle. Blood mixed with internal organs splashed into the sky. In an instant, a master of the Fawn clan was killed. Boom! The degree of shock of such a scene exceeded that of Lung Lingyan's annihilating shadow kill. The brutality of such a move was a shock to the eyes of countless people. Xiao Meng, Li Wu, Lin Yuman, Yun He, and the others were also shocked. Everyone's attention was gathered in one place. Under the tumbling wind, a young and slender figure stood proudly in front of Lung Lingyan. His eyes were like torches, and he held a silver saber in his hand. Although his clothes and appearance were slightly disheveled, the aura that emanated from his body directly crushed everyone present. Sorry, I'm late. Leave the rest to me. Chapter 8:18. I'm sorry I'm late. Leave the rest to me. A cold wind blew between heaven and earth. Looking at the elegant and slender figure in front of them, everyone present could not help but feel a little dazed. A bright red mist of blood sprayed in the wind. The body of the Fawn clan giant was split into two and fell heavily to the ground. Rocks and pieces of flesh flew everywhere. It was a bloody and spectacular scene. The eyes of Xiao Meng from the Heaven Unity Dynasty, Li Wu from the Fawn clan, and the others narrowed. It's the Tianai blade. On the heavenly bamboo peak side, Chenro from a nation of you, Yin, clenched her fists and could not help but exclaim, he actually dares to come out. Yunyi's face involuntarily revealed a mocking sneer. Currently, Lung Lingyan was heavily injured, and the entire Mount Kuan-Lu group was heavily injured. In this kind of situation, Chu Hen was practically sending himself to his death. In this way, he would probably be able to retrieve the Tianai blade today. Boom! At this moment, a thunderous sound exploded in the sky. The other Fawn clan giant emitted a monstrous and majestic aura. Its eyes were blood-red and filled with hatred as it glared at Chu Hen. Bastard, how dare you kill it? I'll crush you into pieces after saying that. It raised its demonic claws and charged towards Chu Hen. At the same time, Li Wu also made his move. He swept up a vast and mighty aura and launched an attack. Lung Lingyan's pretty face changed. Just as she was about to step forward to help, Chu Hen's calm voice was heard. Step back a little. You? Lung Lingyan was startled. She lifted her beautiful eyes and looked at the side profile of Chu Hen's handsome face. There was an indescribable calmness and confidence. She immediately nodded. Before the word heart left her mouth, a layer of ripples immediately appeared in the air. Swoosh! Along with the fleeting arc of light, Chu Hen instantly disappeared from his original spot. He took the lead and charged towards the giant from the Fawn clan. Moreover, he ignored the strength shaman who was charging towards him from behind. Ow! I won't be careless this time. The Fawn clan giant let out a bestial roar. Because he had been defeated by Chu Hen on the Immortal Seeking platform, he did not hold back this time. He released the power of his Fawn clan bloodline to the extreme, and all the power in his body burst forth. That buzz, the Fawn clan giant stretched out its right arm and grabbed towards Chu Hen. Mighty Zhen Yuan covered its entire arm, as if it was burning with a layer of domineering demonic fire. Wherever it went, everything was crushed into nothingness. However, Chu Hen was expressionless. His eyes were cold and cruel. Condensing his palm, rumble, the T&I blade immediately blossomed with a dazzling silver light. A beam of light slid across the blade's body, and the void above was immediately shrouded by nebulae. A storm came, and accompanied by a world-shaking roar of a tiger, a domineering white saber-toothed tiger suddenly appeared behind Chu Hen. His ice-cold pupils looked down on all living things, and a ferocious might from ancient times suppressed everything in all directions. Roar! The tiger roared Zhong Mountain, stirring up raging waves. In an instant, Chu Hen held the T&I saber in both hands and attacked the center of the Fong clan giant's right palm with a head-on thrust. Bang! As soon as the two collided, it was like the intersection of mountains, and a bloody rain of light surged into the sky. What followed was the shrill scream of the Fong clan giant. Ah! Get out of here! Bang, bang, bang! Broken bones flew, and flesh and blood burst. The pupils of everyone present shrank, starting from the palm, then the forearm, then the elbow. The arm of the Fong clan giant exploded inch by inch, like a decayed stone pillar that had been struck by the power of thunder. It was instantly smashed into pieces at this moment. Chu Hen seemed to have transformed into an ancient, ferocious beast, and the T&I saber launched an unstoppable attack. Ah! In just the blink of an eye, the Fong clan giant's entire arm was reduced to pieces. In the next second, Chu Hen, surrounded by the dazzling saber radiance, had already turned into a beam of light that penetrated the Fong clan giant's chest and back. Boom! Blood rained down again, and the Fong clan giant's enormous body immediately exploded into pieces in the void. The bloody scene caused countless people to tremble with fear. While Spawn, in less than 10 seconds, he had killed 2 Fong clan experts who were at the 5th level of the Earth Profound Realm. This directly made the Strength Shaman furious. If I don't kill you today, I'm not worthy of being the descendant of the Saint God. The Saint God? What a joke. Chu Hen held the blade in one hand and raised his other hand lightly. A series of beautiful runes that resembled spirit butterflies lingered on his fingertips. His brows were filled with disdain and contempt. You barbarian groups dare to call yourselves the descendants of the Saint God, eating human blood, devouring human flesh, such a lowly and immoral clan. Only the abyss hell is suitable for you. Shut up. The name of the Saint God is not something a fool like you can blaspheme. My Fong clan god bloodline is immortal. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, the Strength Shaman's body expanded again, and a strange bloody mist gushed out of his body. His face became distorted, and he turned into a green face with fangs, looking like a devil from hell. The terrifying aura was like a mountain, and it made people unable to move. Seeing this, the people from Mount Kunliu could not help but reveal a grave expression. Just the Strength Shaman alone was already so powerful, let alone Xiao Meng, who was waiting for an opportunity. Today's situation boded ill rather than well. Today, I will use your blood as a sacrifice to the Fong clan god. Rumble, the Strength Shaman, whose body had doubled in size, was like a giant that covered the sky. He opened his mouth that was filled with fangs, and a powerful suction force exploded. In an instant, all kinds of energy in the world rapidly gathered in his mouth and turned into a ball of turbid jade ball. Wah! An ear-piercing shriek sounded, and the Strength Shaman looked down at Chu Hen from above. Then, the turbid jade ball in his mouth was like a meteorite that fell from the 9 heavens, causing the world to tremble as it flew towards Chu Hen. A black shadow covered the sky, shrouding the earth. An incomparably restless and violent energy was filled with the power to destroy the world. Lung Lingyan, Lin Yuman, and the rest were all shocked. The Heaven Dynasty's Xiao Meng smiled coldly. Looks like I don't have to do anything anymore. A powerful wave of air whistled through the earth, and a terrifying pressure came crashing down. However, at this moment, Chu Hen flicked his left finger, and countless dazzling runes instantly spread out in all directions. A strange rune array that spanned 100 meters suddenly appeared below Chu Hen without any warning. The mysterious runes intertwined with each other, and they were colorful and brilliant. What? He's also an earth tattoo master? How is this possible? Not only were the people from the other forces shocked, but even the people from Mount Kunliu were shocked. When did Chu Hen become an earth tattoo master? No one knew. Without any time to think, under the surprised gazes of the crowd, the huge rune array that looked like a divine disk released thousands of rays of light. Earth God's hand. Boom! Just as the turbid jade ball that seemed to be able to destroy everything was about to land, an incomparably tough giant stone hand suddenly flew out of the rune array. The giant hand was made up of countless pieces of rock. Bang! In an instant, the two terrifying forces collided. The jade ball that was filled with all kinds of majestic energy bombarded the giant stone hand. The violent true yuan and the mighty Reiki energy were like two tsunamis converging, shaking the heavens and the earth, setting off a raging wave that soared into the sky. Rumble! The space within a radius of 10,000 meters seemed to tremble, and the rubble that filled the sky was like a swarm of locusts, covering the sky and covering the earth, along with the powerful waves of air that surged in all directions. Kiki, Li Wu laughed maniacally. I want to see how many times you can block me. I have the protection of the dragon god bloodline. You can't hurt me. Huh? Then I want to see how you die. A cold voice came directly from the front. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the next instant, 7 glittering metal chains shot out from the rain of rubble. The 7 metal chains danced like dragons and snakes, extending endlessly, shuttling through the rain of rubble. They immediately arrived in front of Li Wu and wrapped around his body. At that moment, Li Wu's body had already reached over 2,000 feet. Although his speed did not decrease, he was too big of a target. A few of the metal chains immediately wrapped around Li Wu's ankles, arms, and waist. You want to trap me with just this? Too naive. Blood mist surged around Li Wu's body, and his muscles bulged. The few metal chains that wrapped around him immediately tightened, as though they would break at any time. Such a shocking scene was like a star chain trapping a ferocious demon. However, the power of this ferocious demon was truly terrifying. Zap, zap. At that moment, a series of black lightning darted up the 7 metal chains, and the dense power of dark lightning was instantly channeled into Li Wu's body through the metal chains. Li Wu's body trembled, and endless black lightning enveloped him like an electric net. The powerful impact of the electric current caused Li Wu's eyes to widen in anger, and they were bloodshot. This is? Everyone present frowned, and their faces were filled with shock. Heaven Dynasty's Xiao Mang was secretly shocked. Then his body moved, and he left Lin Yuman behind. He waved his holy slicing axe and rushed towards the battlefield. Not good. Definitely not good. Xiao Mang could no longer sit still. This nameless pawn called Chu Hen was not a good person at all. However, before Xiao Mang could stop him, a beam of light shot across the sky. Chu Hen, who was engulfed in the power of dark lightning, had already arrived in front of Li Wu. I'm sorry to tell you. Today, even your so-called godly can't save you. The cold voice was like the judgment of the Grim Reaper. Li Wu's expression changed drastically, and a sense of danger enveloped his heart. In a hurry, he struggled with all his might and rushed upwards with all his might. Zap, zap, like the loud cries of millions of lightning birds, violent black lightning covered the Tianai blade. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he held the hilt of the blade with both hands. Without any hesitation, he plunged the cold blade into Li Wu's abdomen. Millions of lightning bolts wandered recklessly. Immediately, Chu Hen held the Tianai blade with both hands, and with the blade facing upwards, he used the power of the heaven-punishing blade and pushed upwards rapidly, sticking close to his opponent's body. Hiss! The sound of flesh being cut was like a beautiful symphony, and the sound of blood dancing in the wind was especially cheerful. Chapter 819. Hiss! The sound of flesh being cut interweaved into a beautiful melody. The sound of fresh blood dancing in the wind, was especially cheerful. The ice-cold blade, covered with black lightning, directly pierced into the abdomen of the strength shaman's huge body and quickly pushed upwards, continuously breaking open the strength shaman's body. The merciless blade was unstoppable, its aura piercing the heavens. Scarlet blood wantonly danced in the air, forming the shape of a blooming flower. The strength shaman's body violently trembled. His eyes were bloodshot, and his mournful screams reverberated throughout the heavens and earth. The strength shaman struggled with all his might. Bang, bang, bang. The few starlight chains that were wrapped around the strength shaman's body instantly shattered. However, it was useless. The Tianai blade in Chu Hen's hand pierced into his internal organs and cut off his bone marrow. Under countless gazes that were filled with endless shock and fear, a huge wound that spanned 100 meters appeared on the strength shaman's huge body. The ghastly wound was dripping with fresh blood, like a ravine. The internal organs were clearly visible. Such a horrifying and ferocious scene sent chills down everyone's spine. If the strength shaman's external appearance was like a demon, then the current Chu Hen was like a cold and merciless death god. His ruthlessness caused everyone's heart to tremble. No matter how powerful the Liao clan's bloodline was, it was impossible for him to ignore such a heavy injury. Anger, malevolence, and fear. All sorts of emotions surged on the strength shaman's distorted face. Xiao Mang, help me kill him. He was powerless to continue fighting and could only rely on the help of the Heaven's Descendants dynasty Xiao Mang. Although Xiao Mang was already rushing over, it was already too far for him to help. I've already said that even if your Liao god comes, he won't be able to save you today. The indifferent voice was the death god's verdict. Chu Hen's figure moved, and he flew above the strength shaman. He raised the Tianai blade with both hands, and countless silver light patterns spread out like blooming white flames. Killing intent. There was no hesitation in killing intent. Be buried in these ruins. Buzz. As his voice fell, 1,000-foot-long saber light slashed down from the sky, and the power on both sides of the world stacked up like stormy waves. The strength shaman's pupils contracted to the size of a needle tip, his distorted face filled with endless fear. No bang! The surging halo was mixed with the stench of blood and wind as it spread out. Everyone's hearts trembled as the strength shaman's body, which was almost 200 meters tall, was directly split into two by Chu Hen's saber. Rumble. It was like a collapsing mountain crashing down, sending up a rain of blood and flesh. Shock tremble. In an instant, he had killed 3 experts of the Liao clan. Such a magnificent feat truly shocked the entire Immortal Prime platform. The people of the Heaven Imperial Dynasty frowned. The people of the Heavenly Bamboo Peak shook their heads, and even the disciples of Mount Kunlu were dumbfounded. Lung Lingyan clenched her fists lightly as she gazed at the young figure with an extraordinary bearing, and her eyes were suffused with traces of pleasant surprise. Then Lung Lingyan's pretty face changed, and she shouted, "Chu Hen, watch your back, what?" Everyone was shocked. They only saw a swift and fierce axe shadow, like a ray of light chasing after the moon, slashing towards Chu Hen. Behind the axe shadow, there was a blurry afterimage. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold as he turned around and slashed with his saber. The lightning-like Tianai saber's power was peerless, and it instantly shattered the axe shadow. Bang! The beautiful light and shadow were like shattered ice crystals, filling the sky and splattering everywhere. In the next instant, a cold and fierce face appeared in front of Chu Hen's eyes. I've really underestimated you. Die for me." Xiao Mang's entire body was surging with hostility, and he was as fierce as a wild beast. He held the holy, cleaving axe high above his head, and it shone brightly, as if he was holding a heavenly medal. Facing the menacing Xiao Mang, Chu Hen's eyes were calm, and he did not retreat. Instead, he advanced and waved the Tianai saber, directly facing the attack. Bang! The holy cleaving axe, which was covered in dazzling golden light, clashed with the Tianai saber, which was swallowing and spitting restless black lightning. In an instant, violent vital energy surged into the sky, and chaotic light and shadow blossomed between the two, causing the space to distort. Chi-chi, buzz-buzz. Sparks flew as the cold blade and the sharp edge of the axe rubbed against each other. The two were like two bulls fighting, not giving way to each other, and they resisted each other with their hidden strength. Xiao Mang stared fiercely at Chu Hen's calm face, and a deep voice came from his throat. "I will definitely kill you today." However, after hearing this, a frivolous smile appeared on the corner of Chu Hen's mouth. He looked straight into the other's eyes and said calmly, "Since you are so confident, why are you afraid?" "Afraid?" Xiao Mang frowned. "Humph, what a joke. Why would I be afraid of you? Fear has already made you lose your calm mind." Chu Hen was still calm and composed, and his torch-like eyes revealed the sharpness of a sword. Roar! Immediately after, a deafening tiger's roar reverberated from within Chu Hen's body. Buzz buzz! Accompanied by a strong and unparalleled ferocity, a shocking white, saber-toothed tiger immediately appeared behind Chu Hen's back. A strong wind suddenly rose, and the sky darkened. A pressure that was comparable to a tsunami from the abyss rushed toward Xiao Mang, and the latter's expression suddenly changed. His trembling eyes suddenly reflected a pair of deep and demonic purple eyes. Everything in the world seemed to turn into nothingness in an instant. The sky and earth spun, and all sounds became silent. Xiao Mang seemed to see his own death in Chu Hen's eyes. It was the same miserable ending as the strength shaman, and not even his bones were left. Fear. It was a genuine fear. No, Xiao Mang's gaze turned fierce, and a strong hatred and murderous intent once again exploded from his body. "You are too naive. If you think that I am only at this level, then you are gravely mistaken." As soon as he finished speaking, the white saber-toothed tiger behind Chu Hen let out a roar, and a majestic force of hidden strength crushed down. Bang! A layer of transparent light rippled into space, and Xiao Mang was caught off guard. His body shook, and he immediately left his original position and retreated downwards. In this first confrontation, Xiao Mang was at a disadvantage. Xian Gu, Bai Nian, and the other people from the Heaven Unified Dynasty all felt that something was wrong. In the next moment, an extremely angry energy wave suddenly surged out. That is... Everyone's gazes converge at the same place without prior agreement. They saw Chu Hen raise one of his hands towards the sky. His 5 fingers opened up, and tens of thousands of starlight beams surged out of his body. They rapidly rotated and gathered in the center of his palm. Buzz buzz, the endless power of the stars quickly gathered in Chu Hen's palm, and it compressed into a sphere. The sky trembled, and the world spun. It seemed as if a tornado had formed between the heaven and the earth. More and more power of the 7 stars compressed together. In the blink of an eye, a huge spiral sphere appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Beams of light followed the rotation of the sphere, and Chu Hen looked as if he was holding a star in his hand, and his aura shook the heavens. What a shocking power density! Just who is he? He can actually compress his true essence to this degree. Everyone's expressions changed as they sensed the strength of the power transmitted from a sphere. The people from the Heaven Unified Dynasty were even more shocked. "Help senior brother Xiao Mei. Quick, bastard, stop right now." Without saying anything else, the people from the Heaven Unified Dynasty quickly flew to help Xiao Mei. The latter's face had already turned green, and at the same time, he fiercely roared, "You want to defeat me? In your dreams, Buzz." Xiao Mang's eyes spewed out flames, and an unending stream of power poured into the Holy Cutter Axe. In the next moment, the Holy Cutter Axe rapidly enlarged, and in an instant, it became dozens of meters wide. Also at the same time, Chu Hen's eyes flickered with the light of the stars. With the power of the heavens in his palm, he shook the power of the stars and threw the huge sphere out. Merak Kill, Chaotic Star River. Rumble, It was earth-shattering, and earth-shattering. The enormous sphere of energy that had been compressed by the surging seven-star force fell down like a meteorite from the heavens, heading straight for Xiao Meng below. The endless pressure was like a huge wave, and the holy cutter axe in front of Xiao Meng was immediately engulfed by the monstrous starlight. Xiao Meng's expression changed drastically, and the expression that had appeared on Li Wu's face previously appeared once again. Boom! In an instant, under the shocked gazes of everyone, the Merak sphere, along with Xiao Meng's body, heavily smashed into the ground below like a meteorite. Rumble, lightning intertwined, heavenly star explosion. Hundreds of millions of rocks instantly soared into the sky, and a terrifying energy exploded in an instant. The ground cracked, and the rocks were all crushed into powder. The aftermath of the frenzied airwave swept in all directions, like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, causing the mountains to collapse and the earth to crack. Senior Brother Xiao Meng. Chapter 820. Rumble. The immortal viewing platform's ground cracked open like a volcano eruption. Boundless chaotic starlight waves swept out in all directions. Everywhere they went, the rocks broke inch by inch and surged into the sky like a swarm of locusts. Bang, bang, bang. The Heaven Imperial Court's people who came to help Xiao Meng were caught off guard. No one expected Chu Hen's move to have such a terrifying destructive power. They couldn't dodge in time and were sent flying while vomiting blood. The world shook and the sky lost its color. Merak annihilation, shattering star river. This was the 6th level of the 7-star scripture, the strongest killing move of the Merak chapter. It compressed the power of the 7 stars to the maximum and instantly detonated it to form an extremely powerful destructive power. This power was even more terrifying than the combined power of the previous 5 killing moves. Rumble. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. Countless rocks turned into dust. Lung Lingyan, Su Lang, Lin Yuman, Yun He, and the others were all shocked. A violent shockwave spread out in all directions. Shortly after, a huge circular crater that was 100 meters deep appeared in everyone's eyes. The turbulent airwaves surged wantonly. Inside the sinkhole, a battered figure covered in blood, his clothes in rags, and his aura was so weak that it was almost gone. He lay there like a dead dog. Hiss! Everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air. Shock. Absolute shock. The other people from the Heaven Imperial Court were already pale with fright when they saw this scene. Retreat. Exangu hurriedly shouted. Is it Senior Brother, Xiao Meng? Bai Nian hesitantly exclaimed. We can't save him, let's go. Immediately, Exangu covered his chest with one hand and suppressed the raging blood in his body while turning around to leave. After a short moment of hesitation, Bai Nian and the others also left Xiao Meng and quickly left. Looking at the group from the Heaven Imperial Court fleeing, the people from the other forces more or less revealed looks of disdain. A bunch of cowards. Su Lang coldly snorted, but due to his own injuries, the people from Mount Kunliu did not pursue. Otherwise, with the Heaven Imperial Court's actions today, not a single one of them would leave alive. As the chaotic airflow calmed down, the crowd of people from the various forces also slowly regained their composure. But everyone's gaze towards Chu Hen became especially cautious. He was clearly only at the 4th level of the Earth Profound Realm, but he was so strong that he could casually kill someone at the 6th level of the Earth Profound Realm. I'm sorry to inform you that you've lost. Chu Hen looked down at the dying Xiao Meng. If it was not for the saint's slicing axe blocking in front of him, Xiao Meng would have died from that attack. At this moment, Xiao Meng actually raised his blood-stained face and revealed a mouthful of cold, white teeth. Kill me. Don't think you'll have it easy either. Don't forget, the trip to the ancient desolate heaven domain isn't over yet. Someone will avenge me. Xiao Meng roared out the last sentence. He used the last bit of his strength to crawl up, and a violent and chaotic power flowed through his body. His hideous and twisted face was filled with ferocity. Not a bad last word. Chu Hen's gaze was as calm as water. Along with his indifferent voice, a ray of sword light swept out from the tip of his finger and instantly turned into a sharp sword pillar that fell down. Bang! A muffled sound rang out. Blood splattered everywhere, and Xiao Mang's body exploded into pieces. Everyone's pupils involuntarily trembled, and an indescribable chill crept into their hearts. They originally thought that Chu Hen would have some misgivings and let Xiao Mang go. After all, the strength of the Heaven Unified Dynasty was there for all to see. However, they did not expect that the other party would still be so ruthless and decisive. Bang! Dust rose everywhere, and mud and stones fell like rain. Whoosh! At the location where Xiao Mang died, a ray of light shot out and steadily landed in Chu Hen's hand. It was Xiao Mang's weapon, the Saint Slicing Axe. Feeling the violent power within the Saint Slicing Axe, ripples appeared in Chu Hen's eyes. This was a pretty good treasure. Are you all right? Chu Hen flashed in front of Lung Lingyan. The latter shook her head, and the corner of her mouth curled up slightly. Her clear eyes were surging with a faint expression. Then, the two of them landed on the cliff of a mountain, and the disciples of Mount Kunliu gathered. Senior sister Lingyan, junior brother Chu Hen. Senior brother Danjin's injuries are very serious. Su Lang and Ling Tao held on to Danjin's shoulders and said anxiously. Chu Hen frowned slightly. Because of him, the team had suffered a lot of losses in this battle. Almost half of the team had died, and everyone was injured. Chu Hen could not help but feel a little apologetic. This is the healing medicine that Hua Shuel left for me. Qi Teng, who was also covered in injuries, quickly took out a small jade bottle. I have it too, Lu Qi also said. It was not easy for Qi Teng and Lu Qi, who came from the 100 Kingdoms continent and entered the ancient desolate heaven domain because of Chu Hen, to be able to survive this kind of battle. However, after so many changes in battles, the two of them were also constantly growing and transforming. Let's use this. The effect of the 100 Flower Dew is milder. At this moment, a gentle female voice came from behind. Everyone was stunned at first. It was none other than the people from Heavenly Bamboo Peak in Yueyun, led by Lin Yuman. To be honest, the disciples of Mount Kunliu did not have a good impression of the people from Heavenly Bamboo Peak, but they liked Lin Yuman. After all, Lin Yuman was willing to help them when they were surrounded by enemies. Lung Lingyan nodded slightly and gestured to Su Lang. Su Lang then took the bottle from Lin Yuman's hand and took out a pill for Danjun to consume. Thank you, Lung Lingyan said softly. You don't have to be so polite with me. Lin Yuman smiled and looked at Chu Hen. She then said to Lung Lingyan, when should we have a good chat? Sure, but I'm afraid we'll have to wait until we leave the ancient desolate heaven domain. Okay, then you have to protect yourself. You too. After a simple chat, Lin Yuman was ready to leave with the group. However, just as she turned around, a deep voice stopped her. Junior sister Lin, we still have other things to do. Oh, Lin Yuman turned around and looked at Yunhee. She was stunned at first, but she quickly understood what he was referring to. Not only her, but the people of Mount Kunliu also reacted instantly. The Tianai saber, the treasure of Yueyun. Everyone cursed in their hearts. This Yunhee was really not a good person. Wasn't he trying to embarrass Lin Yuman by mentioning this now? If Chu Hen did not give it to them, who could do anything to him? Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Hen's deep gaze landed on Yunhee. The latter's expression changed abruptly, and he trembled violently. He instantly regretted being a busybody. Chu Hen even dared to kill Xiao Mang. Why would he be afraid of Yunhee? Lin Yuman could also see that Chu Hen was a little unhappy. She immediately smiled and said, the Tianai saber is no longer the Tianai saber of the past. When we return, I will report the situation to the higher-ups. When that time comes, I will pay a visit to Mount Kunli. 1,000 years ago, the Tianai saber was the saber of the famous general of Yueyun, Bailey Qi. But now, the Karma saber had already fused with the dripping God spear, and coupled with the tempering from the geocentric crystal and immortal spirit nurture inkstone that were used to refine divine artifacts. Its might couldn't be compared to before. With Lin Yuman's knowledge, it was not difficult to see that the Tianai saber had been upgraded. Wait! Chu Hen called out to Lin Yuman, who was about to leave. Do you have any other advice? Just as you said, the Tianai saber is no longer the Tianai saber of the past. Chu Hen stared at the other party's clear and beautiful eyes and said resolutely, So, even if you come again, I will not hand it over. Merciless. The atmosphere became awkward. And then, Lin Yuman raised her eyebrows slightly. She was not angry. On the contrary, Yunhe's expression darkened. He clenched his fists and said, You don't go too far. However, Chu Hen did not look at Yunhe and continued. And then, I want to use this to exchange Hua. With a flash of white light, everyone's eyes lit up. A blood-red coral appeared in Chu Hen's hand. Blood coral heart? One of the more knowledgeable Sky Bamboo Peak disciples blurted out subconsciously. What's a blood coral heart? It's a large-scale defensive treasure. Didn't we pass through a blood-red forest when we entered this immortal viewing platform? As long as the blood coral heart is planted in the ground, that kind of defensive forest will grow. So magical. Lin Yuman's eyes lit up with a trace of interest as she said softly, To the sect, the blood coral heart is indeed a good thing. However, I'm not too sure if our sect master will agree to the exchange. You can give it a try. If it doesn't work, then come and find me to increase the price. Chu Hen's tone became much more relaxed. After all, facing such a gentle woman like Lin Yuman, he really could not bring himself to hate her. All right then. With that, Lin Yuman reached out and took the blood coral heart from Chu Hen's hand. Then she asked with interest, I wonder what other good things did you get other than the blood coral heart? Chu Hen smiled and raised his hand slightly, making a pleased gesture. Lin Yuman did not intend to stay any longer. After a simple farewell to Lung Lingyan, she immediately left with the people of Sky Bamboo Peak. Junior brother Chu Hen, it's not worth it to exchange the blood coral heart for the Tianai saber. As soon as the people of Sky Bamboo Peak left, the people of Mount Kunliu let out a sigh of pity. That's right. If you brought the blood coral heart back to our sect, the demon-slaying temple master would definitely help you keep the Tianai saber. What a pity. If we had the blood coral heart, the defense of our Mount Kunliu would definitely be impregnable. Especially those poisonous insects raised by the blood-refining hall. None of them would be able to fly in. However, Chu Hen only smiled and did not say anything. From his point of view, whether it was a loss or not, whether it was worth it or not, was not the same thing. As long as the Tianai saber was suitable for him, it was worth it. Of course, there was another reason for doing so. He did not want to put Lung Lingyan in a difficult position. Giving the blood coral heart to Lin Yuman was also a way for her to return and to thank her for helping Lung Lingyan. Lung Lingyan did not say anything, but she saw it and quietly said thank you to Chu Hen. The battle on the immortal prying platform was over. The people who gathered there left one after another. Meanwhile, on a cliff several miles away from the battlefield, two middle-aged men with calm auras were respectfully standing behind a young woman. It seemed that they had been standing there since the beginning. Even though their auras were calm, they were hidden so deeply. They sat on the mountain and watched the tigers fight, spying on everything. I didn't expect that Mount Kunliu would have such an extraordinary talent. A middle-aged man said in a deep voice. The other person asked, Miss Lan, was the immortal seal spiritual tree taken by him? The young woman shook her head, confusion surging in her eyes. I don't know. His attainments in the art of runes are only at the level of an earth tattoo master. With his ability, it's absolutely impossible for him to pass through the four deaths of earth and heaven formation and take away the immortal seal spiritual tree in such a short time. But the young woman paused and muttered softly, This person gives me a feeling that I can't see through him. Since it's not him, shall we look elsewhere? Chapter 821. Senior Sister Lingyan, Junior Brother Chu Hen, come quickly. Senior Brother Shan Jun has woken up. In the tranquil mountain forest, a voice filled with excitement reverberated, causing a few small animals that were foraging for food nearby to turn around and run in fright. Following that, a series of rustling footsteps could be heard as several figures gathered under a towering tree. Shan Jun, who was pale, looked at the surroundings and the crowd in confusion. I'm not dead yet. What nonsense are you talking about? Senior brother Shan Jun. Su Lang squatted beside him and patted his shoulder. We're safe now. Really? Where are those people? The enemies have all been taken care of by junior brother Chu Hen. Chu Hen, who was standing behind him, said apologetically, I'm sorry, if I had appeared earlier, you wouldn't have suffered such heavy injuries and lost so many brothers. Speaking of this, the people of Mount Kunli couldn't help but sigh. There were 20 people in the team when they came, but now half of them had died, leaving only a dozen or so. Coupled with the fact that the entire team was injured, they stopped moving after leaving the Immortal Prime platform and rested here. Dan Jun's eyes were slightly moved. It seemed like the people from the Liao clan and the Heaven Unified Dynasty had all fallen at Chu Hen's hands. She felt relief in her heart, but at the same time, she was secretly shocked by Chu Hen's strength. You can continue resting. We still have to continue searching for the flying Immortal Hall, Lord, tomorrow morning. Lung Lingyan said. It had been a while since the ancient desolate heaven domain opened, but the flying Immortal Hall Lord, Qi Hanyu, and the Blood Refinement Hall's Liao Qixio were still nowhere to be found. If they continued to delay like this, no one knew what would happen later on. For them, time was not on their side. Shan Jun naturally understood the current situation and nodded. I understand. Soon after, the group dispersed to different places. Sentries, patrols, and pathfinders were all assigned. Night quickly fell, and a bonfire shone brightly in the dark forest. After a series of intense battles, everyone was extremely tired. All of them closed their eyes to rest or leaned against the trees to rest. Chu Hen sat alone on a rock, not far away. His deep eyes gazed at the stars in the sky, as if he had thousands of thoughts running through his mind. What are you thinking about? A voice that was as gentle as a feather came from behind him. Her fair and slender hand gently patted his shoulder, and Lung Lingyan casually sat down beside Chu Hen. Chu Hen came back to his senses and faintly smiled. Nothing much. You won't tell me? Let me guess. Your eyes are filled with gentleness, and you have an inexplicable silly smile on your face. You must be thinking of a girl. Chu Hen was taken aback and looked at him in surprise. Looks like I was right. Lung Lingyan's beautiful brows raised slightly as a complacent smile appeared on the corners of her mouth. You haven't seen each other for a long time, right? Yeah. Chu Hen heaved a sigh of relief, and the image of a beautiful woman with a heart as clear as ice appeared in his mind. Meng Chong, are you all right? Chu Hen thought to himself. However, seeing that Chu Hen was lost in his thoughts again, Lung Lingyan pursed her lips in dissatisfaction. She wrapped her arms around her knees and said indifferently, I think she should be a very special woman. To me, special is enough. Chu Hen replied, all right, thank you for the day. Thank me for what? Lin Yuman, thank you for not making things difficult for her. Chu Hen smiled. It's nothing. I was the one who snatched the TNI saber in the first place, so it's only right for me to compensate her with something. All right, there's something I want to ask you. Chu Hen suddenly thought of something, and a hint of caution appeared on his face. Speak. Where did those 3 people come from? In Chu Hen's heart, the 2 middle-aged men with steady auras and astonishing strength, as well as the young woman who was a tattoo master. Those 3 people? Who? Lung Lingyan looked puzzled. It's the 3 people in the illusion. One of them made a move and easily destroyed a giant stone statue with the power of lightning. However, Lung Lingyan still looked puzzled. What are you talking about? Why don't I remember such a thing? Don't remember? Chu Hen was stunned. Didn't he? Could it be that it was just an illusion? But if it was an illusion, why did he remember it? Pfft. Just as Chu Hen was puzzled, Lung Lingyan couldn't help but laugh. Haha, I'm just teasing you. You fell for it, haha. You. This time, it was Chu Hen's turn to be confused. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he shook his head helplessly. To be honest, I always thought that you were a lady, but I didn't expect you to be so mischievous. Lung Lingyan shook her head proudly. Even a lady can joke. I'm already convinced by your acting skills. You're an actress who's been ruined by martial arts. I'll accept your compliment. Back and forth, Chu Hen realized that he couldn't win against her in an argument. This was a little awkward, and Chu Hen immediately turned back. You still haven't answered my question. They have a great background. Lung Lingyan also stopped joking around, and a trace of seriousness flashed across her eyes. If I'm not wrong, those three people should be from the Thunder Saint Palace. Thunder Saint Palace? These three words were like lightning, causing Chu Hen's heart to tremble slightly. It had to be said that it was a rather intimidating name. One of the top 10 forces in the Eastern Victory State? One of Lung Lingyan shook her head. You underestimate the Thunder Saint Palace. Even if you say that the Thunder Saint Palace is the top of the top 10 forces, not many people would refute you. Top of? Chu Hen couldn't help but narrow his eyes, and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. One of and top of were two completely different concepts. Unknowingly, he had already come into contact with such a colossal force. Tell me about it in simple terms. Chu Hen said. To be honest, before you came to the ancient, desolate heaven domain, you should have learned about this. Lung Lingyan looked at him with amusement, then softly explained to him. The Eastern Victory State is vast, and rich in resources. There are over 100,000 sects and forces of various sizes. Among the top 10 forces, there are the Myriad World Sect, the Palace of Jiuhua, and the Thunder Saint Palace. Since the beginning of the Eastern Victory State's prosperity, they have always been in the top 3 of the top 10 forces and have never fallen. Chu Hen nodded, indicating that he was listening. Lung Lingyan continued, the Myriad World Sect has always been the top of the top 10 forces. However, in recent years, the Thunder Saint Palace's strength has continued to grow, and they are now on par with the Myriad World Sect, or even surpassing them. Right now, the outside world is often arguing over who is the overlord of the province, between the Thunder Saint Palace and the Myriad World Sect. How powerful are the three sects? Chu Hen asked curiously. That's hard to say. Everyone has a different concept of power. I can only say that the leaders of the Myriad World Sect, the Thunder Saint Palace, and the Palace of Jiuhua have all reached the stage of eternal life and immortality. In the entire Eastern Victory State, no one can shake them. Eternal life, inextinguishable for 1,000 generations. The more Chu Hen listened, the more shocked he became. Just thinking about it made him feel the supreme power. In recent decades, the Thunder Saint Palace has become more powerful, and there are many outstanding geniuses among the younger generation. Lei Jixin and Lei Mingho, in particular, are rare. Both of them are born with the Thunder Soul Saint physique, and they can be said to be the best in the Eastern Victory State. Saint physique. When he heard these two words, Chu Hen's heart immediately set off a storm. This was the first time he heard of someone possessing a saint physique since he entered the Eastern Victory State. His heart was filled with excitement, as if lightning had struck him. The Eastern Victory State was huge, and there were indeed many geniuses. Chapter 822. Myriad World Sect, Thunder Saint Palace, Jiuhua Palace, Eternal Life, inextinguishable for 1,000 generations. Once in 1,000 years, outstanding, Thunder, Soul, Sacred Physique. As the words came out of Lung Lingyan's mouth, they were transmitted to Chu Hen's ears, causing him to have a better understanding of the victorious Eastern Province. Seeing Chu Hen's shocked expression, Lung Lingyan patted his shoulder and said, to be honest, in my eyes, one day, you will be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Lei Mingho, Lei Jixin, and the others. You are not inferior to them at all. Chu Hen smiled a little embarrassedly. Senior sister, you think too highly of me. I come from a lowly background. How can I be compared to the outstanding talents of the great families? Then, Chu Hen suddenly asked, Senior sister, what is Honesty Valley's ranking among the top 10 forces? Lung Lingyan was slightly startled. She was a little surprised that Chu Hen would ask this question. After all, she did not know about what happened to Yao. After a moment of hesitation, Lung Lingyan's red lips parted slightly, and she said, according to overall strength, Honesty Valley is ranked 5th. Fifth, Chu Hen clenched his fists slightly. In other words, Honesty Valley's strength was only 2 levels away from the top 3. Without a doubt, it was a colossal existence in the victorious East State. Honesty Valley's Valley Master, Shinta Chongkong, possesses one of the strongest profound bodies, the illusory sky profound body. When his strength explodes to the extreme, it is comparable to a saint body. He is an extremely powerful existence. There is also Honesty Valley's young Valley Master, Shinto Etian. He is also a monstrous genius whose name is known throughout the entire province. It is said that Shinto Etian is extremely shrewd, good at setting up traps, and has extremely strong control. Bang! Before Lung Lingyan could finish speaking, Chu Hen pressed his hand on the rock beneath him, and a clear palm print immediately formed under his palm. Lung Lingyan jumped in fright from Chu Hen's reaction. She sensed that a hint of cold, killing intent flashed past his eyes, and she immediately realized that her words had provoked him. "What are you doing?" "Sorry." Chu Hen heaved a deep sigh of relief. His expression relaxed, and he replied coldly, "That Wuwang Valley is just a shameless bunch who steal people's bloodline boundaries. You know about this?" Lung Lingyan was even more astonished. Chu Hen clearly didn't even know the main situation in the Victory East State, but he actually knew about Innocence Valley. The main lineage of Innocence Valley was born with a wedding dress mystic body. This bloodline boundary allows one to seize the bloodline power of others for their own use. Valley Master Shinta Chongkong's illusory sky mystic body was stolen from others. However, after dozens of years, Innocence Valley had already announced to the public that they would no longer steal other people's bloodlines. Moreover, after such a long time, they had already washed their hands clean. Chu Hen sneered. Of course he knew. For the sake of attaining the saint physique, Shinto Etian had set up an enormous trap, and his actions of controlling Yi Yao with the heavenly dusk pill and soul detachment powder was simply detestable to the extreme. Senior sister, I need your help with something. Chu Hen looked at Lung Lingyan, his eyes revealing a sword-like determination. Just say it. Immediately send a letter back to the demon slaying Hall Master and ask him to send his disciples to investigate Innocence Valley's movements. But don't tell him that it's my request. Can I know the reason? Lung Lingyan's clear eyes were like water as she asked gently. I'll tell you when I find the people of Innocence Valley. But seeing that Chu Hen was so determined, Lung Lingyan didn't ask anymore. She nodded. Don't worry. Leave this to me. At this point, Chu Hen was more or less anxious. He had originally planned to wait until he completed the task of finding the flying celestial palace master, Chi Hanyu, and then ask for her help to rescue Yi Yao. After all, the success rate would be much higher this way. But time didn't allow him to delay any longer. His intuition told him that Yi Yao was getting closer and closer to danger. Even if he was alone, he had to go and support her. Hang in there, little Yao. Big brother Chu Hen will find you soon. Chu Hen said resolutely in his heart as he looked up at the sky. A shooting star streaked across the sky, and in the blink of an eye, it formed a beautiful spark. The next day, Russell. The sound of hurried footsteps on the grass caused Chu Hen, Lung Lingyan, and the others to open their eyes. Senior sister Lung, junior brother Chu Hen. I found the mark left by junior sister Fuqin. Swish. Along with the excited shouts, a young figure drenched in sweat flashed over. He was holding a piece of fresh tree bark in his hand, and in the middle of the bark, there was an image of a small sword carved. Let me see. Su Lang snatched the tree bark and examined it. Then his eyes lit up as he said, It's indeed the mark left by Fuqin. Everyone was overjoyed, especially Danjun, Chi Tung, and Lu Qi. Where did you find it? Chu Hen asked. It's 60 kilometers ahead. The young man pointed in the direction they came from. Let's go. Without any hesitation, Chu Hen immediately gave the order. After taking the healing medicine and resting for a night, the people of Mount Kunliu had recovered a lot of their energy. Even though Danjun and a few others who were more seriously injured were still pale, it was not a problem. As long as they did not participate in the battle, there would not be any problems. Swish, swish, swish. With Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan in the lead, everyone moved quickly in the forest. However, after moving for less than 10 kilometers, Chu Hen suddenly smelled a dangerous aura rapidly approaching. Instinctively, he stopped and yelled, "Retreat!" What? What happened? Hurry! Lung Lingyan also yelled. In an instant, everyone spread out subconsciously, like fireworks exploding in the sky. Boom! In the next second, a majestic black torrent surged forth, smashing a large area of trees and forests in front of them into pieces. The soil on the ground cracked layer by layer, and the violent power was like a tsunami. Wherever it went, everything was crushed into nothingness. Bang, bang, bang. The strong impact was earth-shattering, whistling over. Everyone on Mount Kunliu, who was caught off guard, was shaken out. Fortunately, they retreated in time, so they didn't suffer serious injuries. Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan retreated to the left and right respectively. They looked at each other with serious expressions. "Who are you?" Hee. The cold laughter was full of undisguised hatred. In the darkness, more than a dozen figures with strong killing intent walked out from afar. "Little bastard, I've finally found you, you bastard. It's you." In an instant, everyone on Mount Kunliu, including Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan, narrowed their eyes and showed a serious expression. The leader had long dark blue hair, a pale face, and the corners of his mouth were dark blue, as if he was smeared with poison. This person was none other than Liao Qixio, one of the leaders of Blood Refining Hall. Why was he here? Unexpected, astonishment, and a lot of uneasiness. Liao Qixio stared at Chu Hen fiercely as if he wanted to tear him into pieces. "I've calculated everything, but I didn't expect you, an ant, to destroy the wall. Do you know how much I want to tear you into pieces?" He was so angry that he wanted to burn Chu Hen into ashes. Very soon, Chu Hen understood. In the battle at the fish stream, Mount Kunliu had obtained a complete victory. Although Wen Liang, the master of the Devil Slayer Palace, had killed Ho Lai and slaughtered everyone in the Blood Refinement Hall within 100 miles, there were definitely a few fish that slipped through the net in such a large-scale battle. After that, those fish that slipped through the net found Liao Qixio and told him what happened. It was obvious that Blood Refining Hall had the upper hand, but who would have thought that because of an inconspicuous Chu Hen, they would lose the whole game? One could imagine how deep Liao Qixio's hatred for Chu Hen was. "Liao Qixio, where's the master of our flying celestial palace?" A disciple from Mount Kunliu asked sternly. "Humph." Liao Qixio smiled sinisterly. "Qi Hanyu, that old hag is dead, what?" Clang. As soon as he said that, everyone was enraged as if they were struck by lightning. Their eyes were bloodshot. "Don't talk nonsense. With your ability, how can you kill the master of our flying celestial palace?" Su Lang roared angrily. Liao Qixio's face was full of disdain. "It doesn't matter if you believe me or not. I cut off that old hag Qi Hanyu's flesh piece by piece. I tortured her for 3 days and 3 nights before I chopped off her head. Nonsense. I'll fight it out with you today." As soon as he finished speaking, a furious disciple was about to rush forward. However, in the next moment, a green holy sword shadow flew over and blocked the disciple's path. "Don't be impulsive. The master of the Flying Celestial Palace is not with him at all." Chapter 8:23. Don't be impulsive. The leader of the Flying Celestial Temple isn't with him at all. The cold and proud sword aura spread out like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, stirring up the gravel and leaves on the ground. Chu Hen extended 2 fingers with one hand and controlled the blue Ran sword from a distance. Sword shadows flowed around his body like flickering light and passing shadows. His ice-cold eyes were like the edge of sword as he stared at Liao Qixio in front of him. "I don't believe a single word you said." Dan Jun had said that before the team split up, Nongqi had sensed the aura of the leader of the Flying Celestial Temple, Qi Hanyu. Moreover, there was another stranger's aura beside Qi Hanyu, and that aura did not originate from Liao Qixio. In other words, Liao Qixio had actually been separated from Qi Hanyu for some time. not to mention the fact that the latter had met with misfortune. That's right, don't believe him. Danjin quickly realized what the problem was. What does it matter if I believe him or not? Liao Qixio's lips curled into a cold and cruel smile. A bone-chilling aura surged out of his body, and a gray mist was released from his body. The gray mist lingered around Liao Qixio's body like thousands of dust particles dancing, and also like a mysterious evil flame wantonly swaying. Lung Lingyan's expression changed as she muttered in a low voice, "Nether aqua flame." Nether aqua flame? Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly. He had witnessed the battle between Liao Qixio and Qi Hanyu in the first battle with the blood-refining sect in the desolate city. The other party's nether aqua flame could even corrode true origin energy. It was definitely a very terrifying ability. Just a little bit of it would corrode one's bones and heart. Amidst the panic, it was filled with determination. Liao Qixio was in existence on the same level as the three Hall Masters. He was a genuine, heavenly, profound stage powerhouse. He did not expect to encounter a ferocious tiger just one day after escaping from the wolf pack. Chu Hen, you know what to do. Lung Lingyan's expression was solemn, and her brows were furrowed with determination. At the same time, the Mount Kuan-Lu disciples also showed their determination to cut off all means of retreat. Of course, Chu Hen's eyelids twitched. His aura did not decrease, but instead increased. He opened his mouth and said, "Everyone, listen to my orders. Immediately scatter and retreat." "You," Lung Lingyan frowned. "This is not the time to be a hero." "I know, but I don't plan to die here." Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, a transcendent sword aura gushed out. Chu Hen stretched out one hand, and the blue Ran sword immediately swept up a piercingly cold wave of air as it slashed towards Liao Qixio. "Go!" The deafening roar set off an invisible sound wave impact that swept in all directions. Everyone on Mount Kunliu was startled. It was obvious that Chu Hen's actions were completely different from what they were thinking. Similarly, even Liao Qixio was surprised. He originally thought that the people of Mount Kunliu would fight to the death and create a chance for Chu Hen to escape. But Chu Hen liked to do the opposite. "Your courage makes me laugh at you," Liao Qixio's murderous aura soared. Then, he lifted his leg and stomped on the ground. Bang! The ground trembled, and a shock wave soared into the sky. Thousands of crushed stones surged into the air and instantly turned into life-threatening hidden weapons that surged toward Chu Hen. Buzz! In an instant, the blue Ran's sword shone brightly, and its speed doubled. The sword radiance lingering on the sword edge smashed thousands of stones and went straight for the opponent's throat. Humph! Insignificant skill. Liao Qixio's fingertips flicked out a ray of gray light and hit the blue Ran sword. Bang! The sound waves collided, and the blue Ran sword was directly shaken out. Whoosh! However, at the same time, Chu Hen sacrificed the Tianai saber and leaped up. The cyclone crown between heaven and earth poured into his body like a whale. Chop! With a roar, a sky-opening saber radiance fell down, breaking the wind and waves, and fell on the dozens of disciples of the blood-refining hall behind Liao Qixio. Damn it! The faces of the people behind Liao Qixio changed greatly, and they immediately realized Chu Hen's intention. Without saying anything, they immediately withdrew and flew back. Boom! The powerful saber radiance fell, the crushed stones collapsed, and the waves overlapped. Many disciples of the blood-refining hall who were caught off guard were shaken to the point that their internal organs turned over and blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. "Why don't you go? It's easier for me to escape alone." Chu Hen turned back and shouted to Lung Lingyan and others again. Obviously, the purpose of Chu Hen's action was to increase the chances of escape for the people behind him. After all, everyone was injured, and staying here would only cause more trouble. Lung Lingyan gritted her teeth and immediately said, "Disperse and evacuate." "Senior Sister Lingyan, cut the crap go." But as soon as the voice fell, Liao Qixio stepped into the air, and the surging netherworld water flame rose like a black flame. He waved his arms, and the amazing power quickly gathered between his palms, forming a restless gray water mass. It's so naive and ridiculous. If I let you, a group of nonentities, escape, I, Liao Qixio, will be laughed at by the world. Then Liao Qixio put his palms together, and the gray light mass in the middle burst like a squeezed water ball. Bang! In an instant, a circle of gray light patterns swept in all directions with Liao Qixio as the center. The mighty gray ripples caused the space to twist violently, and it was unstoppable. Chu Hen grasped the Tianai saber, and the sharp saber waves flowed along both sides. He chopped down with all his strength, boom. The ferocious impact was comparable to the combined attack of thousands of raging bulls. A series of sparks flew, and Chu Hen's arms went numb, almost causing his weapon to fly out of his hands. Bang, bang, bang. Even though they tried their best to block the majority of the impact, the overwhelming gray light still touched the bodies of a few Mount Kunliu disciples. The Netherworld water flame was like a poison that quickly wrapped around the bodies of those people. Their skin quickly turned a greenish purple, and it was an exceptionally terrifying sight. Screams rang out one after another. Dan Zhun, Su Lang, and the others were burning with anxiety, but they could not approach. Being touched by a trace of the Netherworld water flame was destined to a miserable end. Just at this moment, an icy cold current spread out, and with a buzz, a strange purple flame appeared out of thin air between heaven and earth. The purple flame quickly wrapped around the few Mount Kunliu disciples who had been corroded by the Netherworld water flame and attached itself to the gray water flame and began to burn. The burning of the two flames caused them to turn pale with fright. But immediately after, something unbelievable happened. The sound of water vapor evaporating could be heard in the air, and the gray Netherworld water flame was actually swallowed by the purple flame, quickly turning into nothingness. Immediately after, the purple flame also quickly separated and disappeared. The few Mount Kunliu disciples who had thought that they would die for sure had actually broken free from the shackles of death. Only a red burn mark was left on their skin that had come into contact with the Netherworld water flame. After being shocked, everyone's gazes fell on Chu Hen. They saw that his entire body was enveloped in a demonic purple glow, and there was a purple glow in the depths of his handsome face. Chu Hen's flames could actually burn the Netherworld water flame. Even Liao Qixio did not expect this. A cold glint flashed in his eyes, and his killing intent surged even more. No wonder even Ho Lai would fall in your hands. You are indeed an extraordinary fellow, Buzz. Liao Qixio's eyes flashed with a ruthless glint, and the Netherworld water flame that he emitted was like two wild dragons coming out of the sea, rushing towards Chu Hen. The gray light filled the sky, spreading out in all directions. With a thought, Chu Hen spread out his 5 fingers. Voila! The purple demonic flames rose up and surrounded his body, forming a fireball the size of a house. The Netherworld water flame directly rushed forward, covering the surface of the fireball. The intense collision caused the space to tremble. Chu Hen used the purple fireball as a shield to resist the corrosion of the Netherworld water flame. From afar, it looked like 2 domineering flames were intertwining. Although the solitary burning demonic flame was strong, Liao Qixio was a profound sky realm expert. His various abilities were not something that the current Chu Hen could contend against. The gray water flame quickly poured into the purple fireball, and there was no way to block it. Senior Sister Lung, what do we do? The people from Mount Kunliu were anxious. In this situation, they could neither stay nor leave. Without waiting for Lung Lingyan to think of a way to deal with it, the Netherworld water flame covering the purple fireball became incomparably sharp, like a layer of steel plate covered with nails. How can the power of floater shake a tree? The cold wind whistled, and the killing intent surged. Liao Qixio stretched out his 5 fingers and pointed at the place where Chu Hen was. Kill! Buzz! He turned his wrist and closed his 5 fingers. The powerful gray light directly launched an irresistible crushing force towards the center of of the purple fireball. Bang! The purple fireball immediately exploded in the middle. The demonic flames splashed and were instantly crushed. The tide-like netherworld water flame all rushed towards Chu Hin. A cruel smile appeared on the faces of Liao Qixio and the people from the blood-refining hall. The people from Mount Kunliu turned pale with fright. Suddenly, at the critical moment, the spirit tattoo between Chu Hin's eyebrows flashed. Accompanied by the vast Reiki energy, a group of gorgeous crystal brilliance burst out from Chu Hin's body. There seemed to be a strange, dazzling tree shadow outside his body. Then, the dazzling light exploded like a star, expanding rapidly. Boom! The netherworld water flame surrounding Chu Hin was all blown away and repelled. Whoosh! The wind swept away the clouds, and the mountains and rivers roared. His 2 consecutive attacks were resolved by Chu Hin, which made Liao Qixio's killing intent rise again. It's almost over. Boom! The majestic power of an expert in the profound sky realm poured out, and the storm roared. Chu Hin suddenly felt an unprecedented great pressure. He had underestimated the power of an expert in the profound sky realm. Once Liao Qixio exerted his full strength, no one could escape unscathed. Thunder rolled, the tide rolled, and the surrounding trees and vegetation were all uprooted. Liao Qixio looked at the panicked faces of the people from Mount Kunliu.